Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, this time out of Game Week 7, and afterwards we are entering an international break. The plan is to do a reaction stream tomorrow, and after that there'll be a little break from content, and once I return it'll be full throttle with FPL and Use Your Fantasy content. I'll get straight into your questions and comments as always, and provide an ultimate guide throughout this live stream, answering hundreds of questions, providing graphics, team news, injury updates, so you're well prepared for this deadline, and the same goes for the rest of the season. Drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on new goals like 37,000 subscribers, which is possible by the end of the month, and also keep your eyes peeled for all the other platforms on social media like Discord. There is an invite in the description. The same goes for my FPL League, Spotify, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter, and you can get all the updates for FPL and Use Your Fantasy that way. But let's get straight into the first comment by Sudindra, who typically is first here. Hey Dylan, I'm planning to wildcard next game week, so with one free transfer and 2.4 million in the bank, I've got two options. So what is the best for a 1 week punt? Number one, sell Gakpo to one of Gordon, Saka, Eze. Yeah, my preference from those three would be Saka. I don't own any Arsenal assets, and start two out of Dorgu, Anderson, Richarlison. I would start Richarlison, and with the other two, you could argue that Dorgu has the better chance of a clean sheet, but I'm not really feeling either pick there for Game Week 7. Anderson is better for defensive contributions. Dorgu has better clean sheet odds. I guess I go for Dorgu, but my prediction is a 1-1 draw between United and Sunderland, and with the Fulham game, I think they'll lose 1-0. But could Anderson get DEFCON? Probably. It's possible. Based on those predictions, maybe you lean towards Anderson, but just not really feeling it. I'd definitely start Richarlison, even though his form hasn't been great. So yeah, Saka is the answer to your first question. Number two, so one of Estev, Anderson to Gabriel Timber, and start two out of Gakpo, Dorgu, Richarlison. Yeah, I'd stick with number one and buy Saka. Kevy says, going on then Dylan, was close to doing Tarkovsky / Mbumo to Gabriel Eze, or Essa, but didn't pull the trigger. We'll roll this game week and take free transfers into the international break. That could be very handy. And I see what you're going with, those sort of transfers, Gabriel and Eze. I mean, I went for 3-0 in my scoreline predictions, but I'm a bit uneasy about it. I am very mindful that West Ham have beaten Arsenal in the last two meetings at the Emirates, and it's not going to be, you know, smooth sailing throughout the entire game. We also saw Arsenal struggle at moments against Olympiacos. It was a 2-0 win in the end. Probably should have been by more, but yeah, but if it wasn't for Raya, I think a goal or two could have been easily conceded. So yeah, I think keeping Tarkovsky and Mbumo is certainly viable, and Everton have a great record against Crystal Palace, which is why I've gone for a Toffees win in my predictions. But yeah, Palace are definitely an informed team right now. Kevy says, don't feel too great, only having Raya for Arsenal this week, but it happens, can't always have everyone. It's exactly that, and then you balance the transfers in for this week, and whilst I do like Gabriel long-term, with Eze there could be some question marks, and comparing that to free transfers in a week where many people will wildcard or only have one free transfer, I think that's a unique situation to be in. Ekatike or Konate this week, says Jaron. I'd go for Ekatike. I don't think he'll start, but off the bench he could score a goal against Chelsea. With Konate, I think he'll blank, even if Liverpool get the win. I've gone for a 2-2 draw as my scoreline prediction, and I'll show you that very soon. Easy says, one more game week before the international break. Yes. Well, I'm always expecting and hoping a green arrow, right? But if I'm being realistic, I've got a few deficiencies in my squad. I don't have Bukayo Saka or Gyökeres, who look very appealing this week. I'm really bullish on Phil Foden, who I also don't have. Ollie Watkins, I probably should have kept him for the next two, but I just hate the guy FPL-wise. I think we've been through this many times already, but yeah, I think I'm just hoping for a green. That's all I can really say. I don't want to jinx it. I know my luck with FPL sometimes. Serial Football says, hey Dylan, which move would you make this game week? Have only one free transfer. Gakpo to Saka or Nico to Calafiori? The highest ceiling would be with Saka. I know Gakpo is still capable of scoring against Chelsea, but his best returns come at Anfield, and there's no guarantee he even starts the game. So it would be Saka who got a rest in midweek, just like Calafiori, and Saka did score towards the end of that game against Olympiacos. Gabriel's situation, pretty much what I discussed in yesterday's videos. He's fine. Arteta said there's nothing to worry about, and he just was subbed off as a precaution, so nothing really to report. Akil says, wildcard team. Thinking of doing Kudus to Sarr in Game Week 10. I still prefer Sarr now, to be honest, but I understand why you're maybe considering something a little bit different. But Kudus has looked decent in recent games. He got the rest in midweek against Bodo Glimt. At least he wasn't a starter in that match, just like Xavi Simons, but I just go for Sarr now and not booking in a transfer. I also think Sarr can outscore him over the next 3 or 4 game weeks anyway. Roku says, dear Dylan, Should I bench Joao Pedro? I don't think he scores anyway. Well, if you think he's not going to score or assist and he's going to blank, then it just depends on your alternative. But yeah, if you think someone's going to blank, you don't need to start them, even if he's Joao Pedro or one of the most template picks in the game. I personally think Liverpool are slightly there for the taking defensively. I'm not saying they're definitely dropping points, but I think both Chelsea and Liverpool will score, and it should be, hopefully, an exciting game. But yeah, I personally start Joao Pedro in many situations. Now, for those who have Gyökeres, Joao Pedro, and Erling Haaland, and then 5 really good midfielders like Saka this week, then I can understand benching Joao Pedro. But yeah, it just depends on the alternative, really. Thank you, by the way, to, let's get the name up, to Ahmed, who has gifted memberships as well. So doing legendary work on the channel. Thank you very much. I'll be gifting 10 memberships myself, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If we hit our Super Chat goal, that'll be done later on. So I might give 5 very soon, and then another 5 if we hit that Super Chat goal towards the end of the deadline. So to Morpheus FPL, Mark, Fenerbahce 1907, Mateus, and Audrey, enjoy that membership for an entire month. That means early access to my videos, priority to apply to comments, and many other perks. That is very useful, especially in streams like this and UCL Fantasy, which is extremely hectic, to say the least. Baraf says, would you start Tarkowski or Van der Ven? Well, Tarkowski is more likely to get Defcon. Van der Ven scored in midweek. He was in my UCL Fantasy team against Bodo Glimt. The clean sheet is more likely for Tottenham Hotspur against Leeds. I'd probably go for Van der Ven, but there's not much in it. Bench boost of Van der Ven, Dubravka, Rodon, Caicedo. Not too sure about that. Caicedo, probably 4 points you're looking at if he doesn't get booked or red carded. Van der Ven, maybe a decent return there. I think that's not too bad. But with Rodon and Dubravka, I think they'll both blank. I'm going for Dubravka right now on my 11 because Sanchez is facing Liverpool. That's pretty much what it comes down to. I think both of them will concede maybe 2 or 3 goals. So then it comes down to saves potential. Look, I kind of get the questions every week about the bench boost. And ideally, I would get rid of it sooner rather than later for the first half of the season. So I understand that. But for a lot of people, I think a Game Week 8 or 9 bench boost looks even better. Now, in my situation, that's not going to be a thing really because Reinildo is still suspended. I've got a few fires to put out like Gakpo and Chris Wood potentially. And there are some key players I need to bring in to bolster my 50-man squad like Bukayo Saka. So when I look at it, if I wildcard in Game Week 8, I'll probably bench boost in 9 in my situation. And for some people, even with their current setup, which isn't a wildcard team, I think bench boosting in 8 or 9 is better than Game Week 7. Second S says, hi from Geneva, Dylan. Good to see you once again. Thank you very much. Roku says, who should I start, King or Rodon for Joao Pedro? That's what I mean, mate. I mean, look, if you have a feeling about one of those players, back your gut. I think King has the highest ceiling. I've gone for a 1-0 Bournemouth window, so I don't think Fulham will score. And I think King, he's a very young talent with potential, but he hasn't really shown it in FPL just yet. A bit unfortunate against Chelsea a few weeks ago. Rodon against Tottenham, I think Leeds will concede. You're looking at 4 points max because of Defcon. Joao Pedro has the highest ceiling of the 3. I'd personally start him if it was me, but it's up to you there. If you had to start one of the others, it's probably King. I'm not a big fan though. Yeah, top 10 captains was talked about in my best wildcard squad, and I'll go through that very soon, but it's between Haaland and Foden for my favourite captain this week. Let's put it that way. Let's go to the other member questions. So yeah, thank you, Mustafa. I appreciate it. I'll go through questions very soon. Ahmed says, hey brother, really torn with this. Thinking of swapping Salah for Saka this game week, then reversing it after the international break. That is certainly a different idea. Haven't heard that too often in my streams. I've got 2 free transfers. Use 1 for this, making me have 2 free transfers after. Is it worth it? Well, Saka is only 6th in my captaincy list, and he could arguably be higher, and Salah is 7th. His record against Chelsea away is quite poor, though. I am backing a high-scoring affair between Liverpool and Chelsea, and I think Salah will walk away with something. I'd probably keep Salah and have an extra free transfer. That would be my take. In terms of my scoreline predictions, I've gone for 3-0 Arsenal, which, to be honest, I'm not completely sure about. And even last week against Newcastle, I originally said 1-0 Newcastle, then switched it to 1-0 Arsenal, heart over head, and it actually turned out okay from that perspective. But yeah, it's something different. I like that. I think Saka is slightly better this week, but I'd probably keep the free transfer, mate. That's my view. I hope so, mate. I'm expecting a haul from Bruno this week. I can feel it. That would be amazing. Even though I don't like United particularly, but Bruno Fernandes would be, well, I need that. after what happened last week, yeah, it was a disaster. Mr. Makey says, hi Dylan, what do you think about my wildcard? Pope, Dubravka, Saliba, Senesi, Richards, Diouf, Mukiele, Saka, Reinders, Gordon, Semenyo, Sarr, Voldemada, Haaland, Gyökeres. Really good squad. I like that a lot. I talked about a lot of these players in my wildcard podcast yesterday, and by the way, not flexing, it was a triple upload with the predicted lineups, best wildcard squad, and my team selection. Yeah, Gordon and Voltemada is interesting, so you're tripling up on Newcastle with Pope. I think 2 is probably the sweet spot. I know Gordon scored 2 penalties in midweek, but I still think from open play, he hasn't really shown enough this season. But yeah, look, his ceiling is still going to be decent. He's quite consistent over the last couple of seasons for Newcastle. I don't have many complaints about this squad, but if I had to make a few alterations, maybe Caicedo over Reinders. Even Enzo Fernandez over Gordon is probably what I'd recommend, especially with Chelsea having a nice fixture swing very soon. Now, you could go for Gordon now and booking a transfer for a couple of weeks' time, but you've got Semenyo and Sarr, that looks great, Saka as well. So, yeah, those 3 would be in my wildcard squad as well. The front 3, I also like Jarrod Bowen, and that's another thing you could do, by the way. If you don't do Gordon to Enzo Fernandez in Game Week 8 or 9, you might consider Voltemada to Bowen after the international break, because West Ham have great fixtures, and there you can diversify your attack a little bit. But really, I'm nitpicking because it's a good squad. Diouf has assist for it. I think we'll get maybe Defcon on the odd occasion, although Kilman is the best from West Ham in terms of that metric. And I think West Ham will be more solid now under Nuno Espirito Santo, keep more clean sheets. So, yeah, it's looking good, mate. I have to say that. Just in terms of the attack, I would diversify a little bit. So either Enzo Fernandez for Gordon or maybe Bowen for Voltemada. Welcome, Pieter. Good afternoon as well. Jose the Special Most says, hi Dylan, which player should I bench? Reinders, Caicedo or Pedro? Yeah, from those 3 players, it's close. I think Caicedo almost guarantees you 4 points, but I don't think he'll get anything more than that. Let's see how horribly that ages, but I'd probably bench Caicedo, even though he's the most likely to return, which does seem a bit contradictory, but I think his floor is higher, but his ceiling is definitely far lower than Reinders and Pedro. The problem with Reinders is it's so difficult to anticipate when he's going to return, and that's been my issue this season. Yeah, thank you, D. Rowdy. Good luck to you as well. Ahmed, thank you very much. You're the UCL Fantasy legend. Best content on YouTube and amazing early access to your thoughts. Very kind. I know there's a lot of people in UCL Fantasy making content. The same goes for FPL, of course. In fact, even more when it comes to the Prem. But thank you very much for that comment and all the best for Game Week 7. Hopefully, I provided decent feedback in terms of your team and your situation because you were considering Salah to Saka. I have to say, though, if you are feeling it, back your gut. Always play FPL the way you want to, but that's just my perspective. I think Salah might be worth keeping with the extra transfer in mind going into Game Week 8, which someone else also talked about, I think it was Kevy. Having free transfers is so underrated during an international break. Yeah, I think so, Barath, at least for this week. I'll likely wildcard in Game Week 8, which I've talked about for several weeks now. And yes, he would be dropped immediately because Villa have a poor fixture swing after Burnley at home, but there's no need to sell him now. And by the way, for those in the live chat, with my starting 11, would you go for Dubravka or Sanchez? And in terms of the defenders and maybe the attackers on my bench, would you start Chris Wood, Gakpo, or drop one of those defenders on screen? I think Gabriel is out of the question. I'd still start him. I know some people have concerns about him in the lineup this week, but I think he will be a starter against West Ham. So there is a new member in the building, which I think has been the case for quite a while. So thank you to Martin Krevrin for becoming a differential. Much appreciated, mate. Like I said, early access to my videos, prior to apply to comments. So if you do have any messages, questions, then feel free to drop them in and I'll answer them as soon as possible. And you'll have that advantage over non-members and patrons. You also get a nice badge, as you can see. That is from one of the best games I've ever played in Uncharted 2. Mustafa says bench boost with Van der Ven, Dubravka, Goodmanson, and Pedro. Yeah, similar to something I saw earlier. Joao Pedro is always a good player to have on the bench, even against Liverpool. Van der Ven is also quite solid. But Goodmanson and Dubravka, similar to someone else mentioning Rodon and Dubravka, not really feeling it. Once again, I understand having that sort of temptation to drop the bench boost quite early, and it is my recommendation as well. But I think Game Week 8 or 9 for a lot of people looks better in terms of the fixtures. Yeah, look, Gabriel, it's not a big concern. I talked about this earlier. Arteta said that he should be fine. They're going to see after the training session, but I'd be surprised if Gabriel wasn't in the lineup tomorrow. Now, yeah, it is tomorrow. So I'm getting confused with the Friday, Saturday deadlines again. Can I absolutely guarantee you? Do I think Gabriel's the most nailed-on Arsenal defender this week? No, I think that'd be Saliba. But long-term, he is my favourite Arsenal pick defensively. I've said that from the beginning, and finally he paid off against Newcastle. Start Virgil van Dijk or Pedro. Yeah, true. Van Dijk can get DEFCON. It's a bit similar to the Caicedo-Joao Pedro debate. Caicedo will offer you a higher floor, so kind of like a baseline, score of 4 points. But conversely, Joao Pedro, and in this case, of course, you've got him as well, he would offer the highest ceiling. So it's still going to be Joao Pedro for me. I'm also backing a high-scoring game. I'm feeling a 2-2, maybe a narrow Liverpool win 2-1, but ultimately, I think Liverpool will concede. Diego Rodriguez says, hi Dylan, would you free hit in Game Week 7 and wildcard in 8 after the international break? It depends on the squad. I'm not trying to sit on the fence here. Speaking from my perspective, I'd probably say no. I'd just rather wildcard in 8 and save the free hit for Game Week 11 as another sort of match day to kind of pinpoint. But yeah, Game Week 7, I thought about it. Check out my best wildcard squad yesterday, because towards the end of that video, I do build a free hit squad. And it's good, but it's nothing exciting or that amazing over my original team or the wildcard squads I talk about there. So to be honest, even a wildcard in 7 might be slightly more appealing, but I think if possible, hold out until the international break in Game Week 8 and deploy the wildcard then. With a free hit, for most people, I'm going to say no, but I can't really guarantee it for everybody. Thank you, by the way, to Akash. Very kind words, and I do appreciate the shout-outs in the live chat. All your support is massively appreciated. Kevy says, my forwards at the moment are just Haaland and Bowen and Guiu. I like having them both and investing funds elsewhere, although I hate not owning Gyökeres and Voltemada. That's why a possible transfer for me this week is to do Chris Wood to Voltemada and bench one of my defenders. I'm really tempted to do that. Go for a massive differential. The only downside is I've only got one free transfer. And even though my plan is to wildcard next week, you'd still want to bank transfers when possible. And sometimes making no moves is better than just making a change or two. So because of the price changes overnight, I have been priced out of Gakpo and Chris Wood to Gyökeres and Sarr, which would be great long-term, and it might even allow me to delay the wildcard for a few more weeks. But yeah, ultimately, if you're going to wildcard in 8 or you're planning on doing so, I think a -4 here and then benching some good players on paper isn't really the way to go. In your situation, you've got some really good forwards, and yeah, not having Gyökeres or Voltemada is understandable, but not the end of the world, in my opinion. Foden, captain or Haaland? So in my Captaincy ranking, I did go for Haaland top, but that's because of his form, right? Phil Foden is the only Man City player to score at the G-Tech Community Stadium. 7 goals in 7 games in terms of all competitions against Brentford, both home and away. He scored a hat-trick away from home a couple of years ago when he won the Player of the Season award. And yeah, Erling Haaland, I think the most he's gotten at that stadium is an assist. But I think that will change this weekend for what it's worth. He's just too good right now. And Brentford do look leaky. They conceded to Sesko, of course, so it was a very, scrappy goal. Sesko did well. Probably United's best player on the day. And Erling Haaland is levels above every striker in the Premier League at the moment, so probably Haaland for me, but if you want to go differential with the armband, I think Foden is a great shout. Martin says, team, should I bench boost with Dubravka, Van der Ven, Reinders and Alderete? I'd be more keen on this one, because I think Sunderland won't concede that many goals to United, and a clean sheet is still possible, right? Defcon is also a possibility of Alderete, so you're probably looking at 4 points. Reinders, tough to say with him, but his ceiling is definitely there. Van der Ven, clean sheet, not too shabby. Not a massive fan of Dubravka, but 2 or 3 points would be decent. I have to say, I'm probably more keen on this one. Yeah, I think this is a good bench boost. I mean, with other people, it's quite close. They probably have Rodon or Goodmanson. Some people have Joao Pedro, who, to be fair, is still a decent option this week. But I've got a good feeling about 1 or 2 of these players on your bench. And if you can get 15 plus points in a single game week, I think that's a massive success, in my opinion. The bench boost is a bit overrated. Getting rid of it sooner rather than later is my recommendation. And like I said to other people, go to websites like FPL.team, visualize future game weeks. How does your squad look like in 8 or 9? Because I think for a lot of people watching, the bench boost in those game weeks will look even better. But good squad in general. Mint is a nice differential this week. Even if Matoma doesn't start for Brighton, which is a possibility, I'll go through my predicted lineups very soon. But yeah, ultimately, I'm quite happy with this. Yeah, I think I'd probably bench boost. Gordon as a captain for this game week. I'm more keen on Voltemada, to be honest, but Newcastle can win by 2 or 3 goals. Forest are winless under Ange Postecoglou. And Newcastle looked really impressive against Union Saint-Gilloise. Against Arsenal, I don't think they attacked too much, and obviously Voltemada did the most of what he had in terms of service. I'm very impressed by Voltemada so far in his Newcastle career. 3 goals in 4 matches, you can't ask for much more. This is also out, by the way, for the next 8 weeks. So there has been a delay in terms of his setback. Well, sorry, he had a setback in terms of his recovery. So he's now out until November. So I think that boosts Voltemada's appeal even more. Sarr, Doku, Gordon, pick 2. Well, Doku is in good form, to be fair. So he's not a bad pick. Sarr is by far the best option long-term. Maybe this week against Everton, it might be frustrating for those bringing him in, but I think with Sarr, even if he blanks this week or misses an open goal, which he can do, good underlying stats, one of the best midfielders long-term. He was in my Gameweek free team, of course, then I had to sell him because of injury. Yeah, Sarr has to be in it. The other one, I think for this week is Gordon. Yeah. Longer term, though, I talked about it in just a comment prior, Voltemada is my favourite Newcastle attacker. So we've got a lot of new members today, which I do appreciate. Thank you to everyone who is signing up. Thank you to Rulo too. If you've got any question or comment, be sure to let me know. And yes, you've become a differential. So a big shout out to you and also to Paul Carter. So big up to all of you, and also to Ahmed for gifting 5 memberships. I'll be gifting 10 myself. They're completely random, by the way. I'm not just like, I don't know, having a preferential treatment. It's not like a classroom and I'm a teacher and I'm just going to pick my favorites. No, it's just completely random. YouTube do their thing. And yeah, all the best to you in terms of gaining an entire month. I just had a little technical difficulty, by the way, there, so hopefully it didn't cause any issues. But yeah, for an entire month, you get early access to my videos and all that good stuff if you are gifted a membership. So who's taking pens for Villa? Well, Tielemans is the main penalty taker, but he's still injured. It might still be Ollie Watkins, to be fair, but he is such a poor penalty taker. He did miss one in match day 1 of the Europa League a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I guess it's still Watkins. Maybe a Villa fan in the chat will correct me. The same goes for my prediction of Emi Martinez or Marco Bizot. Who's going to start? We'll find out very soon. Ahmed says, so can carry to 4 right after if not used and apply to use for the bench boost soon after. Yeah, that's another good advantage of it. And if you still got the wild card, you can then save that until Gameweek 13, which is a very popular strategy. I've said before that I prefer using in 8, but everyone's situation is different. And everyone does get 6. Everyone gets 5 free transfers in Gameweek 16. So it doesn't matter if you had 0, 1, if you took hits or whatever. Everyone gets 5 free transfers in Gameweek 16. So that could also play a part in our chip strategy. Yeah, free transfers is extremely worth it, especially if I got no issues, mainly injuries, where I can roll. Team looks good after the break, though. 2. Salah seems to be Chelsea's boogeyman. Yeah, Salah's a good record against Chelsea, but it's more so at Anfield. I think at Stamford Bridge, it's been a different story. But is he capable of scoring there? Absolutely. And it just depends on, you know, how both teams line up. Chelsea are down to the bare bones defensively. They're missing so many key players there. So surely Salah and Liverpool players can take advantage. Kudus, I'm not a massive fan, but against Leeds, you're not going to sell him, right? In terms of buying him in, though, I think that ship has sailed, personally, and Spurs have a poor fixture swing very soon. Now, could it be now where Kudus now steps up, he scores goals, and maybe the returns start increasing? It's possible. Some players do better against against better teams. For example, Semenyo last season, but yeah, I think there are better midfielders like Sarr and Semenyo, to be honest. Dylan, I'm on wildcard, Saka over Bruno. Yeah, if you're on wildcard, I'd just go for Saka because then you're booking in a transfer probably. And Arsenal are the better team. Saka is a long-term pick. There could be some rotation there. I think Arteta has been more mindful over the past year of taking them out earlier and giving them the rest when possible, like against Olympiacos. But yeah, Saka over Bruno is definitely the play. Also, for those watching, I mean, even if you're not wildcarding this week, but you want that sort of differential player, Saka has 7% ownership. Do you know how rare it is to have a player of that quality and consistency with that ownership? I think it's a great opportunity. And yeah, if I don't have Bruno Fernandes, I probably would just go to Saka now. But yeah, I'm feeling of keeping Bruno Fernandes in my situation because I'm not wildcarding just yet. That'll probably be the case in Gameweek 8. Sanchez and the rest is fine. I'm not sure what that situation is. And I just saw in the replay, yeah, what happened earlier when I had that technical difficulty. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, Chelsea defensively, not a big fan this week. On a side note, what a beautiful ball the 2026 World Cup is. Can't wait to kick it around soon. Trionda, here we go. I haven't seen it actually, or If I have, I don't remember it, so I need to have a look. But yeah, it all depends on what happens in the World Cup, if I have, you know, a good feeling about these things or not. But yeah, if football looks good, it looks good. What can you say? Dylan, Foden to Mbeumo for Game Week 7. Oh, no. No chance. Surely you're not selling Foden this week when he's got 7 goals in 7 games against Brentford. The only concern here is rotation. You know, does Pep Guardiola change things up a little bit and he puts Phil Foden on the bench? But very recently he gave a quote in a press conference saying that Foden can play every 3 games. His recovery is incredible. Yeah, I think Foden, if I could, I'd have him in my team right now. He was in my free hit squad for Game Week 7. Don't sell Phil Foden. Paredes says, hey Dylan, Game Week 6 triple captain went wild. Yeah, my team is not really well set up for Game Week 7 with only 1 Arsenal asset in Gabriel, similar to me. No Senesi, no Palace defence, and Sells or Dubravka in goal. I'm not sure it's enough for wildcard though. Well, that's the thing, right? And for many people, it would be preferable to wildcard in 8, where you've got the international break, another week's worth of data, and things change so quickly in this environment. But with Palace defenders, for example, I know they look really solid. Palace are unbeaten, the only team in the Premier League, of course, but Everton is a bogey team of theirs. So I think not having Palace players this week isn't the end of the world. And even if they get a win or a draw, I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. So not having Palace for now is fine. But on the wild card, I would recommend a defender like Gay or Lacroix. Richards is also quite underrated. And you've got Ismail Assar in the midfield, who is my favourite Palace player overall. Dylan, Semenyo for Mbeumo for a -4. I think long-term it's worth it, to be fair. And Semenyo has a good record against Fulham. Bournemouth's fixtures do turn for the worse fairly soon. But I think Semenyo's the best midfielder in FPL, so I'd probably go for it. Ahmad says, heard the new ball is worse. Yeah, I don't know. I need to check it out myself. Just because Gabriel is yellow flag, it doesn't mean he's injured. So I'm going to refresh this and see, you know, what FPL have been doing. But yeah, don't panic because someone's yellow flagged. I read out the quote from Arteta earlier. I also covered this in yesterday's podcast. He was subbed off against Olympiacos as a precaution. If there's any risk of injury, then yeah, he could be benched. But for those with Gabriel, are you going to sell him now? Are you going to bench him? That's completely up to you, but that's not something I would recommend personally. Now, in an ideal world, assuming that Gabriel was actually benched and didn't play a single minute, that would be obviously the dream. Then I could have someone come off the bench and make an impact. But yeah, I don't think Gabriel is injured necessarily. He would still be in the squad tomorrow. Foden or Saka? Long-term is Saka. For Game Week 7, I've been very bullish on this from the beginning. I think Foden is the best differential captain this week. But if I'm buying one on the wild card or with a long-term view, it's Saka all day long. Ruler2 says, I'm on wildcard, Dylan. Thoughts? Pope, Timber, Senesi, Richard, Saka, Reinders, Gordon, Semenyo, Haaland, Gyökeres, Isak. I can also do Gordon, Sarr, Minter, and Timber to Gabriel. Oh, yeah. And by the way, I like your picks, but Gordon to Sarr and Timber to Gabriel is what I'd recommend. The only downside is the yellow flag to Gabriel, and this weekend, I think Timber's more nailed on than Gabriel. Long term, though, that won't be the case. And I talked about this being a risk in the Champions League game where Timber and Calafiori were both benched for Lewis Skelly and Ben White. Gabriel is less prone to rotation. After the international break, though, Hincapie should be available, and that could eat into Gabriel's minutes, maybe a few starts here and there. The same goes for the left-back position over Calafiori. So, yeah, Arsenal's defensive depth is mad, but in terms of long-term, the best FPL assets, it would be Sarr and Gabriel Ruler 2. Bench 1, Mateta, Sarr, Gakpo. Gakpo. I'd bench him. Maybe being Canadian has something to do with it, says Ahmed. Fair enough. Yeah, I like the ball. Okay. I have to start Diouf, lol. I can get to Senesi from Tosin or a different 4.8 defender if I sell Renildo. You're just, yeah, 0.1 million off Senesi with that. That's the problem. But Tosin is still injured until after the international break. I just do Tosin to Senesi. Keep Renildo Mandava as your 4 million defender until you wildcard. I think that's the best thing to do. Strand Larsen or Wood to start? Yeah, Strand Larsen is ill, but Vitor Pereira gave an update just a few hours ago, and he said that Tolu isn't fully fit yet either. So I think the minutes will be managed. You know, one will start and play 60, 70 minutes, then the other one comes on. If they're chasing a goal, then maybe they go to a 3-5-2, or of course they're playing a back four at the moment. They can just easily go to a 4-4-2 or a similar formation. I'd pick Strand Larsen though. Yeah. Chris Wood should start, by the way. That's a change from my predicted lineups. Before I go back into your questions, though, let me just make sure that all the members have been answered. And then, yeah, I'm going to go for some different screens. And that will include predicted lineups and, you know, points and stuff like that. So stay tuned. Let's start off, though, with the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating. Arsenal are top up until Game Week 12, which includes the North London derby in a couple of months' time. Wolves, Chelsea, Brighton, and West Ham are in the top 5. And if we look at the bottom, we have Brentford, Liverpool, Man City, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth. But I still recommend Senesi and Semenyo in the long term. With predicted points, Erling Haaland is top with 6.9. Ollie Watkins is second. Bruno Fernandes also completes the top 3. He's technically joint second with Watkins. Cunha is 4th. Yeah, I think the United players might be a little bit overrated this week, considering their opposition. Salah, Semenyo, Saka, Mbumo, Gyökeres, and De Ligt are in the top 10. Let's move on. In terms of my team, what Fantasy Football Hub are recommending is to buy Mateta for Chris Wood, and then bench Joao Pedro and Pedro Porro. Start with Sanchez over Dubravka, go for Gabriel, Lacroix, and Konsa, and all 5 midfielders in Fernandes, Semenyo, Ndai, Reinders, and Cody Gakpo. Of course, Haaland, it goes without saying, the best captaincy option I've got, but my favourite differential this week is Phil Foden. I put a poll out on my channel showing you all the different transfer plans, but let's put it into context. I'm also going to show you my team, which I think is also very important. Or actually, what I might do is go back to this, just so it's fresh in our minds. You'll see when I get to it. But before I go to the stats comparison for this week, let's talk about price changes. So Saka, Voltemade, Gyökeres, Minter, Gravenberch, Burn, Raya, Sarr, Timber, Haaland could all rise in price tonight. It's not certain, but if they reach that 100% threshold, yeah, it's going to be a real possibility. In terms of price falls, we have Florian Wirtz to 8.1 million, Beto, Barnes, Jorginho Rutter, Collins, Hermansen, Onana, that's the Aston Villa one, of course, Lewis Skelly, Ben White. Let's go to the other page. Yeah, there's going to be so many. Not all of these will happen. Bentancur, Tierno Barry. I mean, the rest aren't too fantasy relevant, I guess. Lisandro Martinez, and I don't think all of these will happen. But a fair few will. So use a website like livefpl.net to visualize these potential price changes. And for those that are looking to wildcard in Game Week 8 and you're set on that strategy, my advice is to pull the trigger after this deadline so you can get these players in early, build some squad value, and that can be really helpful because maybe you decide to pick some of these players in your final Game Week 8 wildcard squad, and it makes it even easier to have these players in your team in the long term. So let's now compare the stats of 2 key players, at least for the last couple of months, but both of them have been underperforming. Despite Chris Wood having better stats in the vast majority of these figures, I still think Joao Pedro is the better FPL pick. Chelsea's fixtures turn for the better very soon, but Nottingham Forest are in the bottom 5 of the FDR, which I showed you a few minutes ago. They both have 2 goals, but Pedro has 3 assists on top of it. The creativity stats aren't particularly great for either player, but Joao Pedro has the edge with 0.23 XA and 2 big chance created. Yeah, it's not looking too good for either player. 7 key passes are okay, I guess, for Joao Pedro, but he has been very, well, quiet in the last 3 matches, and a lot of that is based on the red cards that Chelsea have received. He was also sent off in the Champions League against Benfica, but guess what? That doesn't carry over to the Prem. Only those in the Carabao Cup, FA Cup, and the Prem will carry over between those competitions. Let's also use the website fpl.team. I can't recommend this highly enough. One strategy I've got if I don't wildcard in 8, which is unlikely, to be quite honest with you, is to take a -4 hit, buy Saka in the midfield, Jarrod Bowen up front, and also go for Ismaila Sarr. So that would be Bruno Fernandes out for Saka, Gakpo out for Sarr, and then buying Bowen for Chris Wood. And I still have 0.4 million in the bank with the likes of Ndai away to Man City on my bench and Konsa facing Tottenham away. Reinildo Mandava is still suspended against Wolves at home. His return will be on the 25th of October against Chelsea. Dubravka at home to Leeds could feasibly start over Sanchez, but the most likely thing for me is to wildcard in Game Week 8 anyway, which means I could pull the trigger tonight before those price changes. So I'm going to go to FPL Challenge after the deadline because the full focus will be on FPL until that is done. Nick Pope in goal with Gabriel and Gay in that defence. Foden as my captain, Semenyo and Watkins. If I remember to actually make changes, because you can wait until the lineups are done, then you can make some modifications until the game starts. Gabriel could make way for another Arsenal defender. It's one player per club, and this week the challenge is called 0 to Hero. So you get double points for clean sheets, for goalkeepers, defenders, and midfielders. You have an unlimited budget as well. So back to the poll, because I'm going to then show you my team selection and how things look like at the moment. So I put all my transfer plans in here. Gakpo and Wood to mint and Gyökeres for a -4 is the top vote at the moment. In second is Chris Wood to Voltemada, which is currently the way I'm looking. It's either that or roll this week. In third is Gakpo and Wood to Sarr and Watkins, because yes, I want to jinx that guy. I either get points from him or I ruin his career, or at least for another week, because he is a good striker. But I don't know what it is about Watkins, but in FPL, whenever I get this guy, he is absolute trash. The last vote is for Fernandes to Foden, only 11% of the votes, which is understandable, to be fair. So let's go to my team selection graphics. It will show you how I did in Game Week 6, so I'll let that play out. It's all covered in my team selection podcast yesterday, which formed part of a triple upload, just like I did on Monday for UCL Fantasy heading into Matchday 2, where I scored over 100 points on the wildcard. And of course, with that chip, it's a long-term tool. When you get a nice start like that, though, it does give you confidence, especially in the future. You just have to hope you have luck in terms of injuries and suspensions moving forwards. But I triple captain Haaland last week. That was the game changer. Semenyo did his thing, and Gabriel with DEFCON and the late winner against Newcastle was also solid. Everyone else was terrible. That includes Bruno Fernandes, and moving him on is definitely a possibility, but I think that's more likely on the Game Week 8 wildcard to Bukayo Saka and Chris Wood, who went down in price overnight to 7.4 million, making way for Voltemada. That could be a decent play as a one-week punt, but how do we break this down? Is it worth going for the higher ceiling of Voltemada this week and then having one less transfer, or could it be really useful to wildcard in 8 and still have 2 free transfers afterwards going into Game Week 9? That's what I need to weigh up, and that'll be my final kind of decision to make going into this deadline. And I've got a few benching dilemmas, as you'll see in the next section. So bear in mind that poll I just showed you in terms of taking a -4 hit, buying someone like Watkins and Sarr for Gakpo and Chris Wood. Do I maybe sell Fernandes to Foden? Do I just bring in Voltemada for free for Chris Wood? That's what things come down to ultimately. And there are a few other things I could do here and there, but my current plan is to play a 4-4-2 and go for this sort of setup. Erling Haaland would be my captain and Semenyo the vice. I'm quite happy with that, but even with this, you know, benching one of Konsa, Lacroix, Pedro Porro, Gakpo, Wood, ultimately that bench looks quite decent, with Ranilo Mandava being the exception, of course, but yeah, it's not looking too pretty. And I think if I made a transfer, Voltemada in for Chris Wood and starting him is the most likely. Then it just comes down to who do I bench out of those defenders. I think that's the biggest debate I've got this week. There were some modifications to expected points over the last couple of days, so Reinders has dropped to 4.4. Joao Pedro also took a massive hit to 4.1, and Gabriel was at 5.8 when I made my team selection podcast. He's now down to 4.8, and that yellow flag will certainly not help things whatsoever. The rest has remained quite stable, but ultimately with expected points, yeah, yada yada, well done, amazing team rating. I want the actual points like I did in Game Week 6, and I got carried by one man in Erling Haaland as my triple captain. Before I go back to your questions, because that is the bulk of this stream, of course, the interactivity and answering all your questions, let me show you a few different things here. So there is this kind of brief injury section and also points thing. So with Senesi, he is the highest scoring defender. I would still recommend him as a purchase this week, and if I was in a better position, I would be buying in the Argentine right now. Mark Gay is second. Alderete is third as a 4 million defender, and Gabriel has shot up the rankings after that 13 pointer against Newcastle, but he is an injury doubt now going into Game Week 7. Trippier is also up there. Sorry, Trippier. Jurriën Timber is also up there, and that was basically one massive fall against Leeds, and that's it. You've also got Livramento, who is injured for the next 4 to 6 weeks. It might even be longer than that, for the next 2 months. Calafiori and Chalobah, they're all right up there in the standings for defenders. And the one up there I've got for you here is that Alisson will definitely not play on Saturday. So that was confirmed by Slot. after the 1-0 loss against Galatasaray in the Champions League. And what I'll try to do later in this stream is talk about the press conference updates from today. I haven't seen all of them just yet, but some of them will definitely be worth looking at. So Rodri, I think, is fine. Nico Gonzalez is expected to start over him anyway, which I'll talk about very soon. And with Gabriel, Arteta doesn't seem concerned whatsoever, but with FPL, of course, he is yellow flagged. Let's now go through my game week analysis, starting with scoreline predictions. Yeah, some of these are a bit bold, I will admit. Bournemouth 1, Fulham 0, Leeds 1, Tottenham 2, Arsenal 3, West Ham 0, Man United 1, Sunderland 1, Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2, Aston Villa 3, Burnley 2, Everton 2, Crystal Palace 1, Newcastle 2, Forest 0, Wolves 2, Brighton 3, and Brentford 1, Man City 3. Let me now show you my highlight player this week, and hopefully I don't jinx things. And by the way, I went to the wrong screen because I wanted to show you different things. So let's go to the whole analysis. I'll let this play out very quickly. And let's go to the heat map, the team weakness, and then the clean sheet odds, and my top 10 captains, which is always such a popular request in every single stream. Erling Haaland is still number 1 this week, but only just. I think Phil Foden could be a mighty competitor for him. But Nottingham Forest are looking dismal right now, winless under Ange Postecoglou across all competitions, and I think Nick Voltemada is the best Newcastle attacker, especially with that Vissa news. He is out for the next 8 weeks. With the clean sheet odds, Arsenal are top with a 57% chance of keeping a clean sheet against West Ham at home. Aston Villa are second, United are third, with Newcastle, Bournemouth, and Man City in the top 6. West Ham inevitably are last, but they have a good record at the Emirates in recent seasons. And finally, with the top 10 captains, this is what I've gone for. Gabriel in 10th, he is now yellow flag, bear that in mind, and ultimately I wasn't too convinced about the other options, maybe take a punt on a Brighton asset like Minter. Voltemada is 9th though, Fernandes and Salah are just outside the kind of elite group there. Gyökeres and Saka are interchangeable, then you've got Watkins, Semenyo, and I've put Foden in 2nd because of his brilliant record against Brentford. He might even be top this week, but generally speaking, Haaland will top the charts with the captaincy. It will come as no surprise to see that. So I'm going to answer a few questions quickly. You won't see those messages on screen for now. And then I'm going to show you my predicted lineups for Game Week 7. So we do have a super chat in the building. So thank you very much to Paredes. Free hit in 7 and wildcard 8 thoughts. Well, someone did ask this earlier. And let's just go back to my FPL team for now. We can see your message highlighted too for a little bit. I'm not too keen on the free hit in 7 and... don't know why this is not showing up, by the way. Okay, there we go. Now, everyone's situation is different, right? I did build a free hit team in my wildcard squad video yesterday, and it looks pretty good, but it's nothing spectacular in my opinion. I honestly think it's not like a massive gain over non-free hit teams. My preference is to wildcard in 8 and save the free hit for Game Week 11, for example, and it could also be quite useful later on towards the end of the first half of the season, which obviously is around Game Week 19. From that point onwards, then that chip will be, burnt. So you want to use it, of course, and gain some points in the process. But yeah, it just depends on your situation, mate. I think with a free hit, Game Week 11 looks very promising for a lot of people. Wildcard in 8, bench boost in 9, free hit in 11 looks really solid. And for those that didn't triple captain Haaland last week, I'd probably suggest Game Week 13 or 15. The problem is, by that stage, there are more games in the Champions League. You've also got the Carabao Cup. I think rotation is more likely. You've got such a packed schedule around December, so the likes of Salah and Haaland even could be rested or at least taken off earlier in certain matches, which is why I was so bullish on triple captaining Haaland against Burnley last week, and there was an element of fortune with the late goals, but I think that is probably the best play. That is my current recommended chip strategy. I might even go through some slides talking about that chip strategy as well in a few minutes, because that could help a lot of people in this chat. Ahmad says Wood has a terrible record against Newcastle. He did score a hat-trick once against them. It was one of Nuno's first games in charge of Forest, but yeah, generally speaking, it's not a great record. Even with Gakpo, his record against Chelsea, which is quite small in general, but yeah, it's not particularly great either. Paredes says, I used to call him Trolley Watkins. That's a good name. He is a big troll for me. I don't know what it is about this guy, but yeah, I just don't see eye to eye with him in FPL. Yeah, exactly that, Runak Rai. Paredes is another one to thank. Did he give memberships again? Stan says thank you. Thank you. But yeah, he did. Paredes and Ahmed, big legends of the channel. I didn't even see that, so thank you to the members who pointed that out. So Runak Rai, Stan, St. Irons, Kamas, Colm Burglar. It's called Burglar, sorry. I don't know what I'm saying. Futuristic 27 and HNP. Enjoy those memberships. I'll also be gifting 10, so keep your eyes peeled for that. In a couple of minutes, I'll give 5, and towards the end, I'll give 5 more, especially if we hit our super chat goal. Took another -4 this week. Timber in for Milenkovic and Gyökeres in for Wood. Yeah, I mean, I think Gyökeres alone could pay it off. Jurien Timber should start against West Ham, yeah. With Ben White getting the nod against Olympiacos, I'd be hugely surprised if Ben White started again. So yeah, I think Timber's a good pick for this week. Long term, Gabriel's my favourite, but yeah. I think with Arsenal defenders, the one you'd be most concerned about now is Gabriel for Gameweek 7. Long term, that's a different story. I did wildcard and I'll captain Haaland. Yeah, makes sense. I think the main appeal of the wildcard for a lot of people is to bring in Haaland. Wiss says, hola Dylan, ¿crees que Cuti Romero juega? Sí, Thomas Frank lo confirmó en su conferencia de prensa, así que va a jugar Cuti Romero. For those that are wondering what I bloody said, basically, Romero is available. That was confirmed by Thomas Frank in his press conference today. Rance Queen says, to be honest, I'm so cooked. Yeah, it can feel like that sometimes, but maybe that won't be the case. I did finish... Well, actually, I'm close to the end, actually. Actually. Yeah, I'm a few episodes away from finishing it. After that, I'll fully focus on Jujutsu Kaisen, where I finished the first season, but I haven't started the second. So, yeah, I'm quite close to finishing it. Don't spoil it, please. But, yeah, a lot of people I've seen do prefer the second season. It is really good. It's a bit of a slow burner, and usually I like slow burners, but I think the characters in the first season might have been more interesting. That's just my perspective, and I didn't get fully into it, maybe like I did with the first campaign, but I'll have another look. Yeah, I'll have another look. But yeah, it's a good show. It's not my favorite anime, I'll just say it now, but it's a good one. Stan says, Dylan, would you do a 1-week punt, Ekitike to Watkins, or stick with transfer to Voltemada or João Pedro? Yeah, a lot depends on your strategy here. So if you're wildcarding in 8, I think Watkins is probably the best 1-week punt of the 3. But long term, I still think João Pedro is the one, especially with Chelsea's fixture swing in Game Week 9. And I also like Voltemada this week. So just for reference, if I were to make a forward transfer now, it would be Chris Wood to Voltemada. But that also is heavily influenced by my budget, because if I could afford Gyökeres, believe it, I would bloody do so. Long term, my answer will be João Pedro, even though this week he doesn't look particularly great. Ruler 2 says, should I keep Rangers or go Minter? I'm a bit concerned that Rangers won't play 90 minutes going forwards. I still think he's one of the preferred choices in that Man City midfield, but I understand that. My concern with him is that it's so difficult to predict his returns, so it can make benching him or starting him sometimes very frustrating. But yeah, Minter looks more appealing now, and Brighton have a nice fixture swing as well. But I'd probably keep Rangers personally. I think Palmer is a sell. Yeah, I think Palmer is a sell. And I agree with Austin. The season is still long. We're only 6 game weeks in. We're approaching Game Week 7 now. Still a long time. We've only just entered October. Do Gakpo to one of Sarr, Doku, Gordon, or Roll? Long term is Sarr. I just make the transfer and get it done. Yeah. Hi Dylan. Better to first bench Van Dijk or Sunderland defender? I think Sunderland have a better chance of a clean sheet this week. Just my perspective. Van Dijk is good for defensive contributions though. Difficult to say. Yeah, Cylindra, I did answer your question earlier. I did go for Saka in your question, mate. Saka was the one. Best Villa defender, Cash, probably. He's 4.6. I mean, I would not go for a Villa defender. After Burnley at home, they've got a poor fixture run. They have won 3 games in a row across all competitions, so they are improving, but I wouldn't be investing in Villa now. Only as a 1-week punt, then you sell in Game Week 8. Hi Dylan, bench Gakpo for Rangers. That's what I'm currently doing. Probably, yeah, but Rangers are so frustrating sometimes. Thank you, Sophia. As he says, smash the like. Hey, Dylan, would you start Alderete over Rangers? I'd still go for Rangers personally, but that's also based on my predictions. I've gone for 3-1 Man City. I think Sunderland will concede to Man United. They can still win the game, of course, but yeah, I'd start Rangers. Should I go Eze for Semenyo? No. Semenyo is still the better pick long term. Yeah, same here, Ensuki. I wish my FPL was cooking like my UCL Fantasy. I got 120 plus points in UCL Fantasy. If only I could do that in 1 week here. Yeah, it's obviously a different game. Yeah, One Piece is definitely a must-watch, but it's over 1,000 episodes. It's a bloody commitment, isn't it? Yeah, that's the problem. I've also got other shows to watch, like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is, you know, probably the best anime I haven't seen, alongside One Piece. Yeah, and I'm still watching Jujutsu Kaisen and Vinland Saga, so once I'm done with those, I can move on to other shows as well. Do you prefer Joao Pedro and Sarr or Enzo and Mateta on Wildcard? Yeah, good question. It's Joao Pedro and Sarr for me. Am I wrong to consider Semenyo as captain this week? Not really. He's third in my captaincy list. He could arguably be second. The best midfielder so far this season. The second highest scorer in FPL points. He's 14 behind Haaland. Yeah, Semenyo's a good option. Solid record against Fulham. There's a lot to like there. In my opinion, though, it'll be a low-scoring game against Fulham, like 1-0. Could he score and get maximum bonus points? Absolutely, but I don't see him going off. And to be fair, I said the same thing against Brighton and he got a massive return, but there you go. Start Anthony or Ndai? Wow. Probably Ndai. And Palace have a poor record against Everton. I think they're winless in the last 11 matches against them. They certainly haven't won at Goodison, and of course now it's a new stadium, the Hill Dickinson Stadium. They haven't won away to Everton in over 12 years or something? 11 years? I need to double check that. Bench 1, Mateta, Sarr, Gakpo. Gakpo. Despite what I just said, I still think you start your Palace assets, but I wouldn't be in a rush to buy them in now. For Wei Seng, who asked me about the best midfielder to replace Gakpo with, I just think Sarr's the best long term, which is why I recommended him. Best Richarlison replacement, bar Gyökeres. It's between Jared Bowen or Voltemada for me. The problem is the fixture this week for Bowen. So if you want someone with the capability of a massive return now, it's probably Voltemada. Thank you to Seb T for the super chat. He says, is Porro, because people somehow just hate how I say porro, because I'm Spanish, or I speak Spanish, bloody idiots. Is he a risk long-term for rotation? No. I did highlight that as a possibility before the Wolves game. He was going to get benched against Wolves or Bodo Glimt. I was kind of happily or foolishly predicting that he'd be benched against Bodo Glimt instead. It didn't happen. He's the first choice right back for Spurs. It was also an opportunity to give him a rest, which is quite rare. Once I saw him start against Doncaster in the Carabao Cup, I was quite concerned about him potentially getting a rest soon in the Prem, but he'll start most games for Tottenham. To be honest, though, he's a hold against Leeds, and after that, he's a sell, in my opinion. At the same price, you can go for Munoz, other Palace defenders, even Tarkowski. I think Senesi's the best defender right now in FPL anyway. And for just a little bit more, you've got Gabriel and Van Dijk. So I think Borro is a hold for Game Week 7. You start him against Leeds in most scenarios, and you sell in either Game Week 8 or 10 maybe, something like that. Who should I start from? Joao Pedro, Gvardiol, and Ndai. Slight preference for Ndai, personally. I think City will concede against Brentford. 102.5 million, crazy squad value so far. Had Semenyo and Haaland since the beginning. That certainly helps. Do you think this is the most underrated part of FPL? It's definitely a boost when you wildcard and try to make transfers. It just makes things even simpler. So, I'm not sure if it's the most underrated thing about FPL. I have to give that a bit more thought, but yeah, overall it might be a little bit underrated. Now, does that mean you should chase team value and, you know, make early transfers all the time when there is the possibility of injuries throughout the week with, you know, training, Champions League games and stuff like that? I always prioritize information over early transfers, but I will admit to people, in recent weeks, I have made early transfers, and that's because I saw something I wanted to do for sure. I had decent squad depth on the bench, so I got the transfers done early, and it also prevents me from overthinking during a deadline stream, which, of course, people will be used to by now. But, yes, underrated. I'm not sure if it's the most underrated overall. Austin says, Dylan, To Be Hero X is an anime I would recommend if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I've got a long list. I'm not sure if I got that one in there. So, yeah, surely I'll add it to my list if I haven't done so already. Play JP or Enzo? Based on form, you'd probably say Enzo Fernandez, to be fair, but there is a possibility, and I'm going to go to my lineups very soon, that Enzo plays in a deeper position with Caicedo. What you want to see as an Enzo owner is him playing more offensive as the cam, the attacking midfielder, but Buonanotte could still get the nod there. I'd play Joao Pedro personally. He's also potentially on penalties. I know Enzo took the last one against Fulham, but some Chelsea fans did say they saw JP offer Enzo Fernandez the penalty because I think the fans were giving him stick. I'm not sure why that was, but yeah, I think Joao Pedro. Silly Bear says, is Gabriel playing? I believe so. Arteta said he's not too concerned about it. And he also subbed him out against Olympiacos because he took a knock early in the game. They didn't want to take any risks. So nothing's changed from yesterday when I covered this in my triple upload. Thank you, Stan. Thank you so much. Gyökeres I already have, and Wildcard passed in Gameweek 4. Yeah, that's fair enough. And Gyökeres will be the template pick this week, but not necessarily the best. I do like him long term. He is showing signs. He's got 7 shots in the Champions League, no goals. But against Newcastle, you might look at his SofaScore rating and think, oh, he's terrible. But I think he played relatively well. His build-up play and the link-up was certainly better. And yeah, I think Gyökeres will get the returns very soon. Odegaard as a punt, he's in great form, to be fair. Yeah. I also think he'll start. The problem is, Eze has been playing in Odegaard's position recently. Against Newcastle, they played together. And in my predicted lineup, I've got both of them in there with Eze as the left winger. Because I think against low blocks, Arsenal should go for a more attacking or creative sort of team. With Odegaard and Eze in there, it looks really promising. Then you've got super subs in Martinelli and Trossard to make an impact off the bench if needed. That's what I want to see, and I think Odegaard will get the nod, yeah. Will also allow me the extra funds to upgrade Renildo to Senesi, and it also prevents the price drop with Wirtz, which is probably happening tonight. Ndai, Reinders, JP. Who to bench out of those 3? Oh, that's difficult. I'd probably say Reinders, but it's always difficult with this guy. Maybe I need to flip a coin and decide when to bench this guy. I think that's the way, but that's my answer, mate. Hopefully it goes right for you. I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction. Back your gut as always and play FPL the way you want to. No team links for Bournemouth Fulham, but I can offer you my predicted lineup. I mean, that's what I can do. It's not based on any inside information or leaks or stuff like that. I'll have a look, Rye. I'm not purposely missing it, so let me just have a look. Yeah, the chat is very busy. I do appreciate it. Drop a like on this stream. Also, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Yeah, so you did ask about Odegaard as well, Paredes. Let's see if I can get Rye's question, but I don't see it in the chat. I did answer a few of his questions earlier. Let me have a look. I don't see it, but maybe I've skimmed it. I'm having another look quickly. So bear with me for a second. Yeah, Minter or Ndai. Long-term is sorry, Jesus Christ. Long-term is Ndai still for me. But Minter was a serious consideration in my wildcard video. I talked about him quite a lot on my recent podcast. Nice differential, better fixtures than Everton, to be fair. I just think Ndai will be a bit more consistent. Thank you, Sidindra. Hey, Dylan, Borro to Timber. I still think the best Arsenal defender long-term is Gabriel. And Timber will start against West Ham. But in future weeks, we could see White get the odd start in the Prem, like we saw a few days ago in the Champions League. Richards or Ndai? It's going to be Ndai for me. Penalty taker for Everton. Defcon potential. I think the Toffees will score a goal or two, so it has to be him. Yeah, Saka or Foden this week and the next. Probably Foden then. Longer term it'd be Saka, but I really like Foden this week. There is more of a minutes concern with him because he played the full 90 against Monaco in that 2-2 draw. I think Saka will definitely start against West Ham. But yeah, for this week and the next, it's Foden. Yeah. Transfer Gakpo for Odegaard. Look, Odegaard's in great form. Assists against Olympiacos, player of the match as well. And also a game-changing sub against Newcastle, where he also got the assist for Gabriel's winning goal. I still prefer other midfielders like Semenyo and Ismaila Sarr. If you want a differential, Sarr is the best long-term. Richarlison or Gyökeres? Gyökeres. Yo, what's up, Dylan? Any news on Gabriel? Yeah, so I covered this a few times already, mate. Just like in yesterday's videos. Arteta said he's not concerned about him. And they're going to see after training, basically. With yesterday, or at least the quotes I talked about from the Champions League match after the win against Olympiacos, Arteta said he felt something, like a knock, early in the game, and they took him off as a precaution. He also had a collision with Raya. So Raya and one Olympiacos player fell on Gabriel, which was a bit awkward. Then he got taken out shortly afterwards. But yeah, watching him on the bench as well, Gabriel seemed fine. I think he'll be available against West Ham. There could be a slight concern with him after the international break because Piero Hincapié will be available by then. He can play as a left back and left central defender. Bloody hell. So could Gabriel get a rest moving forwards? Yes, but it's less likely than Timber and the others. Bench, Anthony or Reinders? I'd probably start Reinders, so Anthony on the bench. Rice a good option? Yeah. The thing is with Rice, though, I know he scored that beautiful goal against West Ham in that 6-0 win, but that was away from home. At the Emirates, I think his worst performances for Arsenal have come against West Ham. So that's in the back of my mind when I think about this Rice pick. But he got the rest against Olympiacos in midweek. I think he'll play much better against West Ham this time round than he did last season or the year before. But yeah, you make a good proposition there. The set pieces is already enough. Saka can also take some of those corners and free kicks, but yeah, Odegaard's another free kick taker potentially. I'd still look elsewhere. I mean, Ismail Assar for me at Rice's price is a far better option. Maybe not this week, but long term, I think that'd be the case. If you're feeling that punt because West Ham have been poor from set pieces this season, then you can go for it. But there were improvements against Everton with their new manager, Nuno Espirito Santo. They defended corners and free kicks much better. And I think they'll be training on that all week to make sure they're well prepared for tomorrow. So I'm going to say no. Like, okay, is he a good option? Yes. But would I go for Rice? Probably not. Do you think Tavernier will start? It's a possibility. I'll go through my lineups in just a few minutes. I did have Brooks in there in my final predicted lineup. So I think it's between Tavernier, Brooks, and also Adley. And depending on who starts, that shifts Semenyo out a little bit. So I think Kluivert will play as the attacking midfielder. Semenyo and Brooks on the wings. But they can switch things out a little bit depending on the opposition. Pope or Petrovic? Pope. Morning, Dylan. Play one of Van der Ven, Gay, and Tarkovsky. Close one. I've gone for Gay in FPL Challenge, but I still think Everton could get a result there. It's probably going to be Van der Ven. Probably. I bought Gabriel before the press conference. Okay, so let me get the quote up because a lot of people are asking about Gabriel. They're worried about the yellow flag. Let's go through it in detail. So let's see if I can bring up this page as well. Before I do, though, let me show you my predicted lineups. I'm going to do that first. So let's go to this right now. You're not going to see my face or the highlighted messages, so just bear that in mind. I'll go back to your messages very shortly. So Gabriel's now yellow flagged. Bear that in mind, but Breyer in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Zubimendi, Odegaard and Rice, with Saka and Eze on the wings, and Gyökeres up front. The points you see, by the way, or the score, the numbers on the top right-hand corner of your screen are my predictions. How many I've gotten right out of, you know, the maximum number. So 6 game weeks have gone by. 66 is the kind of maximum I can get. So not too shabby so far with Arsenal and Villa. I do have a serious consideration here of Martinez or Marco Bizot. So this could definitely change, but I'm going for the Argentine between the sticks with Cash, Konsa, Pau Torres and Luka Dean, Kamara and McGinn in the midfield, Guesan and Rodgers. Well, it could be Buendia on the wings, to be fair. That could also interchange between Rodgers and Buendia, and then Watkins up front. Next up is Bournemouth. So someone asked me about Tavernier. There is a chance he starts over Kluivert or Brooks, but I've gone for this setup with Petrovic in goal, Jimenez at right back, who gets so many yellow cards, by the way, Troffer on the left, Senesi and Diakite in central defence, also Adams and Christie in midfield, Ivanosen up front. Semenyo will surely start. It's just a question of if it's on the left or right, and that ultimately depends on if Adley, Brooks or Tavernier get the nod. Moving on to Brentford, it's either a 5 at the back formation or this 4-2-3-1. I think they'll stick with this against Man City. We'll wait and see. Heller in goal, Coyote, Collins, Van der Berg, and I've gone for Lewis Potter this time. In yesterday's podcast, I did go for Hickey, so that's another debate I've got in the back of my mind. Henderson and Yarmouk in the midfield. Dango Ouattara will start if Brentford play a back 4, with Kevin Schade on the left, Damsgaard as the attacking midfielder, and Igor Thiago up front. With Brighton, I made a few changes to yesterday's video. I put the Kuiper in the lineup with Kadioglu on the right. Veltman is injured, so that's something that's changed, of course, over the past day or so. So Veltman will not play. Verbruggen in goal, Van Heck and Dunk in the defence, Beleba and Ayari in the midfield. And I think Matoma could drop out here. He is yellow flagged, and if he isn't available to start, I'm going for Diego Gomez on the left, Mint on the right, and Jorginho Rota just behind Danny Welbeck. The next team is Burnley, so they will likely go for a 5-4-1 once again. Dubravka in goal, Walker, Lauren, Estev, Ekdal and Hartman, with Chuana and Jaden Anthony, who is attracting a lot of FPL interest. He now costs 5.7 million in this game. Cullen and Florentino Luis is the likely midfield partnership, but Ogachukwu is available. Lyle Foster will likely start up front for the Clarets. And Chelsea, so as you can see up until this point, they're the team I've predicted the worst. And I do have a slight concern about central defence. Will it be Achimpong or Hato? And if it is Hato, he'll be as the left centre-back and Badiashile alongside him. I've gone for Reece James and Cucurella as the fullbacks, Sanchez in goal. And another debate I've got is whether it'll be Lavia or Enzo Fernandez partnering Caicedo in the midfield pivot. So if it's Lavia, Enzo will be pushed further forward, but there is the possibility of two Argentines starting in the midfield with Buenanote as the attacking midfielder, Neto and Esteval on the wings, and Joao Pedro up front. Moving on to Crystal Palace, I've gotten 64 correct out of 66. Their lineup has been quite solid and stable all season. Dean Henderson in goal, Richards, Lacroix and Gay, with Wharton and Kamada in central midfield, Munoz and Mitchell as the wingbacks, with Sarr, Yeremy Pino and Jean-Philippe Mateta. My favourite option is Ismaila Sarr. Moving on to the Toffees, Pickford in goal, O'Brien, Tarkovsky, Keane and Mikalenko, with Idrissa Gana Gay and Garner in the midfield, Indai and Grealish on the wings. I've gone for Alcaraz to replace Dewsbury Hall, who is suspended like for like. And of course with Chelsea, by the way, Chalobah is also suspended for 1 game. He's available for Gameweek 8 after the international break, just like Dewsbury Hall. Beto and Barry is another close call, but what we could also see is a few changes, like Grealish being shifted to the centre, maybe Dibbling gets a run out to the right-hand side and Indai moves to the left. So Everton could definitely shake things up a little bit offensively, but I think Alcaraz will come in for Dewsbury Hall, and many Toffees fans feel the same way. We're now going to Fulham, with Leno in goal, Castagna, Anderson, Bassi and Sessegnon, Sandenberg and Lukic in the midfield, Wilson and Iwobi as the wingers, with Josh King just behind Adama Traore. But if Raul Jimenez is fit, he will start. He is yellow flagged at the moment. Rodrigo Muniz is definitively ruled out. I think Kenny Tete as well in the right back spot. So I think Jimenez would be a massive priority to get fit for Bournemouth away. So just bear that in mind. I think Jimenez will start if he's fit enough. Otherwise, Adama Traore will take that number 9 spot. Darlow in goal, Bogle, Rodon, Strauch and Goodmanson will be the defensive line that Leeds opt for, with Ampadu, Longstaff and Stack in that midfield. Aronson and Okafor partnering Calvert-Lewin up front, and Leeds have some promising fixtures on the horizon. Unlike Liverpool though, I know Man United at home could be quite decent, but yeah, it will be Mamardashvili as the backup for Alisson, and it looks like the Brazilian won't be available for the next couple of weeks, so that's going to be a long-term absence. He's going to miss a lot of key games for Liverpool. That includes Chelsea, Man United, also some key contests in the Champions League like Real Madrid. I've gone for Frimpong and Robertson as the fullbacks. I think Robertson could get the nod over Kerkez, who has started the last couple of games across all competitions. Kanate and Van Dijk. I've gone for Wirtz on the bench this time, but that's another concern I've got here. Szoboszlai can play right back in central midfield alongside McAllister or Gravenberch, and ultimately Gravenberch will play no matter what system or personnel Liverpool go for. Salah and Gakpo on the wings and Isak up front, but this is not the easiest to predict right now. With Man City, they seem to have quite a settled 11 at the moment, with Donnarumma in goal, Mateus Nunes, Ruben Dias-Carvalho and O'Reilly, with Nico Gonzalez in central midfield. I think Savia will be the winger, and obviously Doku on the other side, with Reinders and Foden just behind Erling Haaland. We are approaching the end of this segment, and this will be referred to probably one more time later on, but I'm not going to provide commentary. With Man United, will Lamens finally start? I wouldn't rule it out, but I've gone for Bayindir, and most predicted lineups I've seen, in fact all of them, have the Turkish goalkeeper between the sticks. De Ligt, Maguire and Shaw in that defensive line, with Dalot and Dorgu as the wing-backs. Casemiro returns from suspension after that red card against Chelsea, with Bruno Fernandes, Mbeumo, Cunha and Benjamin Sesko. With Newcastle, they went to a 4-3-3 against Arsenal and Union Saint-Gilloise. Nick Pope in goal, he went up in price overnight to 5.1 million. Trippier replaces the injured Tino Livramento, and Dan Burn will likely be the left back again, with Chow and Botman in central defence. Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes and Joelinton in the midfield. Jacob Murphy on the right, Gordon on the left and Voltemada up front. With Nottingham Forest, Murillo is now injured. He played in the Europa League yesterday and was subbed off due to injury. and also Sinchenko is out, so they will likely go for Savona on the right and Nico Williams as the left back, with Milenkovic and Morato in central defence. Matt Sells in goal, goes without saying. Nico Dominguez and Anderson in the midfield, with Bakwa and Ndoye on the wings, and Gibbs White just behind Chris Wood, who scored a penalty in the dying embers of that 3-2 defeat. With Sunderland, Roofs in goal also went up in price to 4.6 million. Hume and Masuaku as the fullbacks. Mukiele and Alderete in central defence. There were some concerns about Mukiele over the past couple of days, but he is available as confirmed by the manager today. Xhaka, Siddiqui and Rig will be the midfield three, with Talbi and Lefay partnering Isidore up front. With Tottenham Hotspur, Vicario in goal, I think Pedro Porro will start with a doggy, but there is the chance that Jed Spence starts once again. Romero has been cleared by Thomas Frank. He said he's going to play for sure against Leeds tomorrow, alongside Mickey van der Ven. João Paulinho, Bentancur and Bergvall is the likely midfield three. This could also be a 4-2-3-1 formation instead of this 4-3-3 on screen. Kudus and Xavi Simons on the wings, and Richarlison up front. West Ham could make a few changes, but I've gone for an unchanged side, to be honest. I think they had a decent platform from that 1-1 draw against Everton. Areola in goal, Walker-Peters, Mavropanos, Kilman and Diouf, who is definitely appealing from an FPL perspective. Magassa and Fernandes in the midfield. Bowen and Somerville on the wings. Lucas Paqueta just behind Nicholas Füllkrug. The final team is the one I've done the worst in. So my average is actually around 90% without Wolves, but these lot bring my total down to like 88%, which is still high, but this is not a good enough percentage. Johnston in goal should be the goalkeeper, with Doughty and Hugo Bueno as the fullbacks, Santiago Bueno and Krejci in the defence, with Joao Gomez and Andre, Arias and Hwang Hee-chan on the wings, who had a few injury problems or, a few doubts over the last couple of days, but he should be available. Menetzi as the attacking midfielder, and Strand Larsen, I believe, could be yellow flag now. I'll have to double check that, but both him and Tolu aren't fully fit yet, and their minutes could be managed. So let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Do you disagree with anything? Maybe Marco Bizot over Emi Martinez with Arsenal, for example. Do you think Eze and Odegaard start simultaneously? But let's get back to your questions and comments as always. Drop a like on this video. You get extensive coverage with chip strategies, predicted lineups. All the questions are answered, of course, and much more as well. There are some super chats in the building, and yes, I need to go through the Gabriel quote because people keep on asking me about Gabriel. I need to provide some clarity on that situation and put some minds at ease. Thank you, Pratik. Greetings to you as well. Anish says, hey, Dylan. Raya, Virgil van Dijk, Senesi, Lacroix, Gakpo, Eze, Kudus, Semenyo, Sarr, Haaland captain, Joao Pedro, with Dubravka, Goodmanson, Igor Jesus, and Chalobah on the bench. Should I take a -4? That's a good squad this week, and I feel like I always say this about your team anyway, but I don't think it needs a -4 hit necessarily. There could definitely be something in it, though, with a free transfer or taking that -4 and just going the extra mile, though. I think Gakpo might be the weak link in your starting 11. Of course, Van Dijk isn't ideal against Chelsea, but apart from that, I think that looks very solid. Yeah, -4 is a difficult one. I think your defense is fine. You leave that untouched. Maybe Gakpo. I don't know what your budget is, but to either Saka, Foden, even Bruno Fernandes this week, I think could pay off for a -4 hit. So let me know, Anish, in just a normal message, if you have enough money to go Saka. If that's the case, I think Gakpo to him looks really enticing. No sé, Agustín, porque es medio raro la situación. Creo que contra Manchester City, Bruno Fernández lo criticó por no marcar a, creo que a Rodri en una jugada y después resultó en un gol. Yo creo que va a jugar Maguire con De Ligt y también Luke Shaw, como dije recién. Así que para mí Yoro no va a jugar el partido contra Sunderland. No es hecho. Hay una posibilidad que entre todavía en la alineación, pero me parece muy raro la situación entre Yoro y Bruno Fernandes. Pratik says, I think with Nuno, West Ham could string a few clean sheets from Game Week 8 to 12. I agree. That's why Diouf is heavily under consideration for my wildcard, which I'll likely deploy in Game Week 8. Jarrod Bowen up front would also be very appealing for me. Yeah, Gabriel's still worth it on the wildcard. Let me go to that quote, because otherwise people are going to be, very uneasy about Gabriel all day long. So let's go to the Premier League website, the blog, where they have all these updates from the press conferences today. Let's see if I can find Gabriel. Oh, is that Marco Bizot? No, it's Emi Martinez, but yeah. Let's go to Gabriel here. Let's see if I can find him. Let's see. It's taking a while to do this. Hopefully this will... No? Okay, I've got to keep scrolling down then. But yeah, this did have the updates. Let me just scroll down all the way, because I think Arteta's comments were from quite early on. Any bloody second now, any second now. It might have been a bit more. By the way, that Marina celebration is really good. I'm just saying, okay? That's just my opinion. Anyway, let's get this Gabriel bloody quote. Because I did see on Twitter, and I also saw it posted on this page, but I think it might have been, yeah, around here. So, team news. So this is what Mikel Arteta said. We will have to wait and see after training with Gabriel. We'll have to see how everyone is, but we are not too concerned about him. Piero Hincapié will be available after the international break. The game came too fast. Kai Havertz, Noni Madueke, and Gabriel Jesus are still the same. So, yeah, as you can see, not too concerned. Can you trust Arteta? Maybe not. You kind of get the impression sometimes with Bukayo Saka in the past, oh, he's going to play. You know, he's basically really bullish about him. Then he is left out of the squad, or he's on the bench. And then when he does the opposite and is like, oh, I'm not so sure if he returns, then he plays. I get why people might not be fully convinced, but I believe Gabriel will play against West Ham. Of course, could the Gunners go with Mosquera and Saliba and still get the job done? Yeah, they can, because Mosquera's a good player, but yeah, I think Gabriel will start personally. That's the way I feel. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Little typo, by the way, from the Premier League. They say on 30 games in charge, this will be Arteta's 300th game in charge of the Gunners against West Ham tomorrow. Don't make that a loss, please. Thank you very much. Let's now go back to my FPL squad, where changes are still possible. And I'm going to put a poll out before answering more questions, and that is in regards to my final transfers. Hopefully I haven't missed any super chats. Yeah, there is one by Mitra. Ndai versus Gordon long term. I still have a slight preference for Ndai. The thing is, in your forward line, you might go for the template 3 of Joao Pedro, Haaland, and Gyökeres. So if you still want that Newcastle offensive coverage, then Gordon is absolutely fine. He's also on penalties, as we saw against Union Saint-Gilloise. So I think Gordon is definitely a reasonable pick. I still prefer Ndai, though. He can get DEFCON. He's fixture-proof on penalties as well. There's not really much to split them, but Ndai is cheaper. Slight preference for Ndai personally, that's what I would say. But if you're not going for Walter Mada up front, having that Newcastle coverage is still quite underrated. So I get why you might be leaning towards Gordon. Aranya says, my squad, Dubravka, Senesi, Lacroix, Van de Ven, Salah, Semenyo, Foden, Reinders, Ndoye, Joao Pedro, Haaland, with Sanchez, Esteve, Renilo Mandava, and Guiu on the bench. One free transfer, 0.9 million in the bank. So if you were to make a transfer, it would be for Ndoye, I think. You've got Semenyo. You've still got Salah, which is fine, by the way. You don't need to sell him necessarily, but one thing that's crossed my mind is something like Salah to Saka, in this case, and then Ndoye to Fernandes. But I think the best thing to do is use one free transfer and sell Ndoye to Sa, because that could also help you in future game weeks. It might not pay off against Everton, because like I said, the Toffees are a bit of a bogey team for Crystal Palace. But I just think Sa is a great long-term pick, solid stats. You're going to get, maybe not consistency from him, but I think he'll be one of the best midfielders in FPL this season. Good price tag. If he can stay fit, I think Sa is the way to go. Massive upgrade on Ndoye, in my opinion. So let's put this poll out, and then I'll get back to the member questions and stuff like that. Bench Diouf or De Kuyper? I'd bench Diouf. De Kuyper, I think, will start, as I covered a few minutes ago. And I'll whiz through the other questions as well, I promise. But let's put this bloody poll out. We have over an hour left until the deadline. Time flies when you're having fun, in my opinion. Maybe you're not having fun. Let me know in the bloody live chat. So these are my final transfer plans. So let's do Wood to Voldemada. I'll put Roll the Transfer as one of them. Okay. A Game Week 8 wildcard is likely. Okay, so the other things I'm considering would be Gakpo and Wood to Sa and Watkins -4. Yeah, Watkins just a jinx, really. And let's add another one. So this would maybe be Gyökeres. So that would be the Minter and Victor Gyökeres. Let's see what you lot think. So, oh, bloody hell, this stupid character limit is doing my head in. Okay, I think I know what to do. Give me a second, lads and lasses. I bloody hate character limits. Okay, I'll be done in a jiffy. I bloody promise. Okay, so there you go. Let's then go back to this. Okay, I think that actually helps. Okay. So these are my final transfer plans. A Gameweek 8 wildcard is likely. So Wood to Voltemada, roll the transfer, Gakpo and Wood to Son Watkins for a -4. And to be fair, that could still be... It could be Voltemada instead, to be fair. But I've gone for Watkins. I do like him this week. And I don't know. Maybe I just want more pain from Watkins. Then Gakpo and Wood to Minter and Gyökeres for a -4. Let me know what you think. I'm going to put the poll out now. Let's whiz from some questions because, trust me, I can get through a lot of them. Yeah, you've seen that time after time again. Okay, says, hey Dylan, would you do Ndai to Sarr, Salah to Gordon, Richarlison to Gyökeres for a -4? That looks pretty good, you know. The only thing that's kind of holding me back is, well, to be fair, the players you're selling could do well this week. Like, they're good options, but I think long-term you are upgrading. And you still probably have a bit of money in the bank. You can use that in other areas, like getting Gabriel or a double up in the Arsenal defense, maybe Saka. So that's a difficult one, but I'm probably going to say no. I also think that Palace could struggle against Everton this week, which also plays a part in that. So that's just my initial take. It's a really close one, though. It hangs in the balance. You know, it might even be worth a poll later on. If I can do that, then I will do that for you. I think that people have a very good idea of what to do in your situation. I'm going to say no. Who's a better pick on the 6 million, Isidore or Thiago? Isidore's been very impressive, to be fair. Igor Thiago with the brace against United caught everyone's attention. I think with Brentford's fixtures turning in a couple of weeks' time, that could be the play. I'd probably lean towards Igor Thiago, but there's not much in it as well. Gakpo to Eze or Gordon. I like Eze, but I would lean towards Gordon here. My favourite Newcastle attacker, though, is Voltemada, who is winning the poll. Wood to Voltemada is the top vote with 41%, now 40%. In second is Minton Gyökeres for a -4. And yeah, the Sarr Watkins one is last, which is understandable, by the way, because, yeah, Watkins. Salah to Saka and Caicedo to Gordon for a -4, or just Salah to Saka, or just roll. But this is the thing as well, El Hassan. Who would you bench if you sold Caicedo and Salah to Saka and Gordon? I like the players you're bringing in, but Salah and Caicedo are still really good. I don't think Caicedo is worth selling, to be honest. I think just roll, to be honest. Yeah, I think roll. If you had to make one move, I think Salah to Saka could work. It could, but I don't see a massive upside this week. That's the way I look at it. I think both Salah and Saka could both score and get a decent return this week. That's the way I feel. Pedro in for Voltemada. I don't know why. Voldemate. For his form, team form, and Chelsea's injuries. So yeah, you're selling João Pedro for Voltemada. Not a bad idea. If you want to go away from the template, selling him to Bowen or Voltemada is the way to go. On the Gameweek 8 wildcard, it's more likely I'll go for Jared Bowen, and as a one-week punt, I could just take it on Voltemada. That's the way I'm leaning towards right now. Agustín says, muchas gracias, voy con Porro y lo dejo a Lloro al banco entonces. Creo que sí, y con Pedro Porro estaba en el banco contra Wolves, pero yo lo dije en el Deadrun Stream de la semana pasada. Era contra Wolves o Bodo Glimt, donde Porro iba al banco, y yo pensaba que iba a ser al revés, pero finalmente estaba en el banco contra Wolves, pero va a empezar seguramente mañana contra Leeds. Silly says, hey Dylan, would you do Souls to Raya this week, or hold a transfer and do Raya to Pope and Fernandes to Saka next week? That is a close one. I'm guessing, so in the last sentence of your question, I'm guessing you're saying sells to Pope next week and then Fernandes to Saka. Interesting one. I do like buying a Newcastle defender or goalkeeper this week, but yeah, ultimately you want to focus your transfers in the outfield positions. That is kind of like the dilemma, but Sells is a weak link. Yeah, he is. I think he has to go. It's one of those rare situations where I'd probably prioritize the goalkeeper move first, because Fernandes and Saka is quite close this week. In Game Week 8, different story. Saka's a good record against Fulham. Fernandes did score at Anfield last season, but you would expect Liverpool to win quite comprehensively, especially if United still have the same manager. So I'm probably going to say Raya in first there, silly. Can never trust what Arteta says anyway. I don't know. I mean, when it comes to injuries, like with Saka, maybe, but I think generally speaking, maybe people have a different perception about him in general, but that's just my opinion. Joao Pedro, Caicedo start. Joao Pedro. It's a decent week to wildcard, Alex, but I'd prefer Game Week 8. Yeah. Who would you start? Caicedo, Joao Pedro, Van de Ven. Still Joao Pedro. Higher ceiling. Alfred69 says, hi, mate. Who's the best mid differential this game week? Have 9.1 to spend. Minter would be up there against Wolves. Phil Foden as a captain. Another one there for you. Long-term, Sar's the best differential midfielder. And of course, Saka's ownership is quite low, by the way. So I think any of them would fit the bill. It's going to be one of Saka or I'm going to say Minter this week. One of those two. Who to bench? Anderson, Joachim Anderson, or Virgil van Dijk? Yeah, difficult one. I'm going to say Joachim Anderson on the bench, actually. They all can get DEFCON. I think you're probably looking at Anderson, 4 points. Joachim Anderson could be similar, maybe 3 points. And Van Dijk, yeah, it's a difficult one. Ultimately, I don't think any of those keep a clean sheet. They can all get DEFCON. But I think Joachim Anderson is the least appealing. Hey, Dylan, should I start Van de Ven or King? Van de Ven. Mohab says, Mateta to Gyökeres for a 1 week punt or just roll? Probably roll. I like Gyökeres, but yeah, I'd probably keep Mateta here. Thank you, Anish, for the super chat. I have 2.9 million in the bank, no chips left. Yeah, Gakpo to Saka. It's also a great long-term move, especially because you have no chips left. So, yeah, Saka in. Yeah, I agree, Rance. It's definitely not ideal, but it is what it is. Even Raya, as good as he looks this week, he might concede against West Ham. Who knows? And the Gunners have struggled against West Ham in recent seasons, at the Emirates anyway. Enzo or Caicedo, Burn or Trippier? I like both midfielders, but probably Enzo. Burn or Trippier? Trippier. At least until Livramento is injured. Or until he returns, I should say. Should I start Van de Ven or switch up Sarr or Van de Ven and play 3 at the back? I'd play Sarr over Van de Ven, yeah. I think Leeds will score. Bar or Dubravka this week? Oof, probably Verbruggen. Who do I bench? Reinders, Ndai or Kudus? Maybe Reinders, which is a big risk. Not much in it. Bournemouth differential, Ivanosen up front. Arsenal attacking differential. Well, Saka is a differential, which might surprise you, but his ownership is 7-8%. So most people are going to Gyökeres, but I think Saka could be the play. So if I look at Saka's ownership now, it's 7.4. I'd class that as a differential, so that's my answer. Odegaard's in brilliant form. You might want to punt on him, but it's Saka for me. Yeah, welcome to Stepaki. Zubimendi to Gordon or Minter or Sarr. Long term, Ismaila Sarr. Lucy says, should I sell Salah? It really depends. Not to a Tottenham player, no. Definitely not. Like, could it pay off this week against Leeds? Yeah, but no, I don't think it's worth selling Salah unless you're doing something like Salah to Saka, then buying Haaland up front. Otherwise, I think I just keep Salah for now. Van Dijk to Gabriel or Salah to Saka / roll. I mean, the biggest upgrade on paper this week would be Van Dijk to Gabriel, but the yellow flag is a bit off-putting. For what it's worth, I think Gabriel will start tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. I can't guarantee it, but I think that's the biggest upgrade. The thing is with Salah as well, he's still so expensive, and if you don't have Erling Haaland, I'd make the move now. And if you can do Salah to Saka and then buy Haaland, that is the dream. So it just depends on the context of your squad. Hey Dylan, Xavi Simons or Ivanosen, who to start? Ivanosen. Terence says, which two should I start from Van Dijk, Richards, Joao Pedro, and Ndai? I would start Ndai and Joao Pedro. Vidani says, start two. Van de Ven, Gakpo, Joao Pedro, and Munoz. No Arsenal in the squad. Van Dijk to Timber. So Timber will start tomorrow. I'm convinced about that. Long term, though, just like we saw in midweek, Ben White can eat into those minutes and starts. So bear that in mind. Gabriel is my favourite and the most secure defender in the long term, even though this weekend you could argue he's the least secure, especially compared to Timber. But yeah, with your starting two question, Joao Pedro, probably Munoz. Yeah, probably those two. I think for those with Palace or Everton assets, I think you just play them. If you have a bit of a, clash, like Richards against, let's say, Ndai, or you've got, I don't know, Sarr against Tarkovsky, then it can be a bit frustrating. But yeah, I think with those Palace-Everton players, you start them. Harry says, hi Dylan, I opted to free hit this week instead of wildcard and have it planned for next week. I've seen a few people mention it, which is fair enough. Everyone's situation is different. Prefer to wildcard over international break. I agree on that one, yeah. And Gabriel Doubts also gives me an opening for a differential pick. That makes sense. Yeah, the way you framed it, it looks good. I don't know your free hit squad, but I would encourage you to check out my wildcard video because towards the end, I do highlight a free hit team for Gameweek 7. So maybe you can use that for a few ideas or to compare it to how you've lined up and maybe see the differences and other differentials you could go for, like Minter. Petrovic or Donnarumma? This week, it'd be Petrovic. I'm backing a Bournemouth 1-0 win. And that could be Evanescence scoring the winning goal. Or Semenyo, they're the most likely, with maximum bonus points. But yeah, it would be Petrovic. Is Romero to Timber worth it? Romero will start tomorrow. So you don't need to sell him now. He can get DEFCON. I think Timber is an upgrade long-term, but as I just mentioned, long-term you will have some concerns about him if Ben White stays fit, because he's a good right-back. He can get plenty of starts for Arsenal. Ruler 2 says, just imagine how good Mendes and Hakimi would be in FPL. And we do have a lack of fullbacks this season. I mean, in my opinion, Timber's the best right-back in the Premier League. Yet his attacking threat isn't going to be anywhere near those players you're mentioning, especially Hakimi, who gets a goal or assist so frequently. I believe that was his first goal contribution this season, though, against Barcelona. But yeah, he's a use your fantasy machine. We saw that in the Club World Cup as well. Yeah, with DEFCON, though, it's kind of similar to ball recoveries, right? And technically, you'd be a bit more likely to get DEFCON in FPL because it also includes clearances, blocks, interceptions, and tackles, whilst with UCL Fantasy, it's more so focused on interceptions and recovering the ball. But yeah, it's a good point. I think we have a real lack of quality fullbacks in the Premier League, especially from an attacking sense. Rodgers or Bruno? Still Bruno for me, but you'd want to start both. Voltemada or Evanescence? Slight preference for Voltemada, especially long term. You can cover Bournemouth with Semenyo and Senesi. Richards or Van Dijk to play? Richards. Ndai to Saka? I'm not against that, no. I think that's pretty good, actually. Ndai's solid, but Saka is on another level. If I had the money, and that was my only route to Saka, I'd probably do it. So the answer is yes. So yeah, that was covered. Best defender under 6 million for Gameweek 7 and 8. Probably Calafiori, right? Otherwise, it might be Senesi, you know? It might be Senesi again. It's Calafiori or Senesi for me. 2 free transfers, Salah Foster to Saka Voltemada or Gordon Isak. It would be Saka Voltemada for me, but rolling and getting free transfers. So Foster away to Villa, are you starting him? If you've got a decent player to come in from the midfield or defensive line, I'd probably just stick with Salah and then have free transfers in Gameweek 8. But if you were to pull the trigger, it's Saka and Voltemada for me. Let me just see what the rest of your message says, because I did lose it temporarily. I included Salah in the Gameweek 6 wildcard for United at home. Already own Haaland, double Arsenal defence, Gavardio, double Bournemouth. Well, in that case, I'd probably just keep Salah and roll, but it all depends on who you can start over Foster in Gameweek 7. I did go for a 3-2 Villa win, so if that transpired, there's a decent chance Foster gets a goal, right? But I think Jadon Anthony is clearly the best Burnley attacker. Hi, Dylan. Start 2 out of Sells, Dubravka, Agbadu. Well, basically, Sells or Dubravka, I would start Dubravka. Not much in it, though. Agbadu, Williams, or Nestev. Can I start 2, or is this just 1? If it's just 1, I'm probably going to say Agbadu with Forest, Burnley, and Wolves. I think they all concede 2 or 3 goals anyway. But Agbadu can get DEFCON. To be honest, though, actually, what am I saying? Agbadu, I don't think will start. It will be Krejci and Santiago Bueno in a back 4. So it's probably Williams, and I don't like that. If possible, I try to bolster that defensive line. Hey Dylan, Ivanosen for Voltemada. I actually like Ivanosen this week against Fulham. But yes, if I was wildcarding or bringing in a striker now, it would be Voltemada. But is it worth selling Ivanosen? I'm not so sure, mate. He has been poor this season in terms of the numbers, so I get that. But I've got a good feeling about him today. I'm going to say no, and hopefully it doesn't go against you. Whatever you do, back your gut, even if it is the complete opposite of what I just said. You always have to trust your instincts. I'm just offering my opinion. VRK7 says play 2 out of 3. I'd bench Van der Ven. Yeah, I'd bench Van der Ven. Thank you, Harry. I appreciate that. Twisted Parky says captain is Haaland, vice Salah. London most likely to be okay, but shall I play safe and vice captain Semenyo? Oh yeah, there is this kind of hurricane, right? Yeah, the storm happening over the weekend. Yeah, it should be fine. I mean, well, it's just a bit of rain, right? And wind, hopefully. I don't want to jinx it, but I think that's good, yeah. I think Semenyo over Salah vice-captaincy is probably what I'd go for anyway. As I showed you in my captaincy list yesterday in the wildcard video and earlier today, and I'll go to it very soon. Start 3 defender, says Alex. Gabriel, Munoz, and Van der Ven. I'd diversify your defense a little bit. I do like Richards and his DEFCON potential, but I'd have him first on the bench and Rodon second. SS says bench 1. Probably Reinders, actually. I'd definitely start Bruno Fernandes no matter what you do. Just my opinion. Sada says I play my wild card and have the Dubravka Roofs. Yeah, it looks okay. I'm not too sure about Sunderland long term in terms of like starting their goalkeeper week in, week out, but he has been the best so far this season. So Gay, Senesi, Van der Ven, Alderete. So yeah, that's my concern. I know you're probably going to bench Alderete most of the time, but I wouldn't double up on Sunderland defensively. So my advice is to go for Pope in goal or Raya. You've also got no Arsenal defensive coverage, and they've got the best fixtures until Game Week 12, the best defense in the league, in my opinion. So I definitely recommend Gabriel or Raya, at least one of them. In the midfield, looks decent, just not a big fan of Kudus long term. I'd rather go for Sarr. And yeah, Gravenberch, I know he's been good this season in FPL, but no, not for me. I'd rather go for Caicedo, who you have, to be fair, Enzo Fernandez, Ismaila Sarr, like I just mentioned, even Ndai. Minter could also be quite decent at 5.9 million. So any of those midfielders over Gravenberch. I'd bring in Gabriel and or Raya. And up front, yeah, Mayenda doesn't start. It's Isidore. And Richarlison, okay for this week, but long term you've got Colomwani and Solanke who'll be back fairly soon. So even Igor Thiago would be better, I think, longer term. And I would recommend a Joao Pedro, Bowen or Voltemada. At least one of those players up front. So I think there's a few things I'd change with that team. You're trying to include Salah and Haaland at the same time. I get it. If you want to really have Salah, then maybe consider a budget for like Igor Thiago long term. But otherwise, I'd probably downgrade Salah to Saka and get a second or third Arsenal player in. You've got no Arsenal players at all. Well, you got Timber, actually, to be fair. I missed him. That's okay, to be fair. But yeah, double Sunderland defence, not for me. You can also consider Newcastle defenders like Trippier or Burn, Nick Pope in goal. I think the forward line is the weakest part of the team, personally. Radovan says, hi Dylan, should I do Goodmanson, Salah, King to Gabriel, Saka and Sarr? Yeah, I would. Thank you, Alex. I'm doing well. Hopefully you are too. Gyökeres or Haaland captain? It's still Erling Haaland for me. Hillary says, best defender. I did cover this. Man United differential. Bloody hell. Probably Sesko. I mean, Mbumo has over 10% ownership. I'm not going to say he's a differential per se, but yeah, it's difficult. With United, it's Fernandes or nothing, and even with Fernandes, people want to sell him. What change do you think they'll make for next season with DEFCON? I don't think it'll remain the same. Maybe in terms of the criteria of how to reach it. So midfielders and forwards need to make 12 defensive actions, whilst defenders only need 10. So I think either everyone goes to 12 actions necessary to get the 2 DEFCON points, or it'll just be 10 for everybody. Another thing I was considering as well with a possible change is maybe if someone gets like 24 defensive actions, for example, you can get 4 points. I think that could be another way of people getting more points in general, higher scores flying around. When Caicedo goes bonkers and wins the ball all the time, you get rewarded, you know, to a very high level with that sort of performance. So I think those are the two changes I'd probably consider. Ambient Dream courses, transferring Minter and Isidore or Voltemada and Isidore. I'm not trying to be funny, mate, but basically what you're asking me is Minter or Voltemada. I prefer Voltemada, so that's what I'd go for. Eze's decent, but Saka's my favourite Arsenal midfielder. Start Konate or Alderete. Alderete. Sorry, mate, it's Van Dijk, not Van de Ven. So my defenders are Virgil, Munoz, Richards, Gabriel, Rodon. Yeah, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I do prefer Van de Ven over Van Dijk this week. Not by much, though. So it's probably still the same answer. Van Dijk, Munoz, and Gabriel. Like and subscribe if you want green arrows. Thank you, Kevy. As he says, drop a like on the video. And also subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Do you think Amrim gets fired if he doesn't get a result this weekend? Yeah, I do. Also, the international break. Good opportunity to pull the trigger. Yeah, I get that, Lucy, but he got you a jammy assist last week. He's a keep against Burnley and a sell afterwards on paper. Would you play Roofs against United? What's the alternative? If it's Raya, then ultimately I'd say Raya. It just depends on your other goalkeeper. But if it's Dubravka or Sanchez, then I'm probably going to say Roofs. JP to Voltemada. As I mentioned in the last couple of weeks, if you want to go away from the template, selling Joao Pedro to one of Bowen or Voltemada looks good. But Chelsea have a nice fixture swing very soon. I think Joao Pedro will be much better in the coming weeks, especially if Chelsea don't go down to 10 men. Surely that'll be, you know, behind them. In 3 of the last 4 games across all comps, they've gotten a red card. That has to change. So I like Voltemada a lot, but I would keep Joao Pedro. Ahmad says, I have both Romero and Van de Ven, but starting both of them is making me nervous, considering selling Gakpo to bring in Gordon for a total of -8 and bench Van de Ven. I'm not sure that's worth it, though. Yeah, as you say, the -8 is what puts me off. I get why you don't want to start Romero and Van de Ven simultaneously. I think one is enough. No problem, SS, and hopefully it goes well for you. Geotip says -4, Salah to Saka / Gordon, and Foster to Voltemada / Gyökeres. This is similar to something I saw earlier, but to answer your question, so does it have to be one Arsenal and one Newcastle, or could it be a double up? I wouldn't mind Saka and Gyökeres as a differential, but if you want diversity in your attack, I'd probably say Saka and Voltemada for a -4 hit. The downside is selling Salah, because he can always do well, and selling him for a hit is always risky, but that's completely up to you if you go for it. I think long-term, Saka and Voltemada looks really solid. Siad says, hey Dylan, my team. So yeah, Sanchez, Dubravka in goal. Pedro up top, 2 free transfers. So this week, I mean, I'm starting Dubravka at the moment. It's literally a coin toss. I might get my coin now and then do it in a few minutes. In terms of your defense, yeah, start Calafiori, Senesi, and probably Gay. Midfield, I mean, yeah, you got Grealish in there. You've got a bit of a clash, but it is what it is. So I'd start Enzo, Semenyo, Eze, maybe Gakpo this week, maybe. Wood, Haaland, Pedro. Oh, that's not too shabby. What I'd probably do, though, is Chris Wood to either Gyökeres or Voltemada. And you could do something like Gakpo to Sarr. I really like that long term. Just some ideas there for you. Saliba, Timber, Gabriel. Long term, Gabriel. I've said that all day long. He might be the least secure this week. I understand that. But I think he'll start tomorrow. If you feel differently, then you can go for a different pick. But I think he's still the best long term. Mandip says, hey mate, is it worth taking a hit to field 15 players for a bench boost next week? It would be Gu to Foster, along with Dubravka, Rodon, and Alderete. Well, the fixtures look much better in Gameweek 8 or 9, which is why for a lot of people, when they ask me about the bench boost, I always told them, use FPL.team and consider Gameweek 8 or 9, because it might be even better when it comes to those fixtures. So for a -4 hit, that looks okay. Not a big fan of buying Foster for a hit, to be honest, but the rest looks quite decent, and it can definitely pay off with a bench boost. Start Romero, Anderson, or Rodon. Romero. Start Joao Pedro or Reinders, says Archie. Joao Pedro. Not much in it, though. Ger22, or Ger, start 1 between Virgil, Nico Williams, or Anderson. Probably Van Dijk. Thank you, JM. Good luck to you as well. We still have 40 minutes until the deadline. Make sure to lock in. I'm going to try whiz through these, by the way. Just have to make sure that I haven't missed any member questions. I think I have. So Pratik says, would you play Wirtz over Wood or Joao Pedro? Over Chris Wood. Yeah, I think so. Van der Ven to Calafiori or Roll. I have 1 free transfer. So Calafiori will start tomorrow, like I said with Timber, but longer term, you could see Skelly, Hincapié when he's available, and Ben White start in the left-back and right-back positions for Arsenal in the Premier League and Champions League. So he's not completely nailed on. With Calafiori as well, he's injury-prone, so it's important to manage his minutes and make sure he doesn't get overplayed. I would just keep it safe, even though this week he's yellow flagged. I think Gabriel's the best Arsenal defender long-term. So probably keep Van der Ven for now and then buy Gabriel next week. That's what I'd recommend, if you can. Sell Joao Pedro to Voltemada, I'd say no. But once again, it's not a bad idea, especially for this week. I think Voltemada is better. But Chelsea have a nice fixture swing in 8 and 9, so that's the problem. Davis says, hey Dylan, start 1 between Xavi Simons or Evanussen. I think I had this question earlier and I went for Evanussen. Konsa or Van der Ven. Even though I've gone for a 3-2 Villa win, I've also gone for a 2-1 Spurs win. And if you look at the clean sheet odds, Villa are 3rd. No, they're actually 2nd. United are the 1 in 3rd. So, yeah, I'd go for Konsa because if you look at the clean sheet odds and the bookmakers, Villa are near the top. Only Arsenal are ahead of them in that regard. Yeah, Ambient, I did answer that question. Thank you very much. Sam says, thoughts on Cucurella to Senesi, Gakpo to Saka, Wood to Voltemada. Looks good. You're buying arguably the best defender in FPL right now, one of the best midfielders who's a differential, and Voltemada is an upgrade on Wood. I might even make that transfer myself, so the answer is yes, yes, and oh, yes. Sada says, I play my wild card. Yeah, I did cover this question, mate. Thank you. Arn Finn says, Ndai or Enzo? For this week, Ndai. Not much in it, though. I'm not a massive fan of taking a hit. It depends, though. I've taken hits before that have paid off big time, but yeah, more often than not, you could argue it hasn't paid off. This season, for example, I keep going back to it, but it's just for people to kind of bear in mind. Gameweek 3, I had Palmer injured. I had 2 choices. Do I buy Sarr and Wood for a -4? And ultimately, I got the captaincy wrong with Wood. I went for that. Sarr was a good pick in my opinion. He got injured, a bit unfortunate there. The alternative, Captain Bruno, and just buy him in for free to replace Palmer. That resulted in a 20-point swing, there or thereabouts, because I also benched Ndai like a fool. And yeah, sometimes just doing a free transfer or rolling is the best thing to do, but not always. Salah to Saka or Gordon, it's Saka, mate, but you don't need to sell Salah. Villa differential, Buendia, good form. He scored and assisted against Fulham, scored against Feyenoord in the Europa League, but he's not someone I'd recommend. Any worries that either Bodder or Bruno miss out because of the storm? No. I'm not really thinking about that right now, and I'm not going to play a chip because of it. So the answer to your question is no. I'm going for Sunderland attacking. In that case, I'd go for Isidore. I think he's the best one. Gyökeres or Haaland captain? Haaland. Buy Timber or Gabriel? Long-term is Gabriel. Why do you prefer Trippier over Burn on a wild card? Because Livramento is out for the next 8 weeks. With Dan Burn, once Lewis Hall is ready to start, we could see Burn on the bench, but a lot of Newcastle fans would say, how weird, man. He loves Burn. You know, they just love, or Eddie Howe loves Dan Burn so much, he always fits him in somehow, and I've got him in my UCL fantasy team, by the way, but yeah, I think Trippier is just the more, or maybe the safer pick over the next 8 weeks, let's say. He's also got DEFCON potential, or yeah, I keep getting that mixed up with ball recoveries. Same crap, basically. But that's why I went for Trippier on that wild card. I just think when Hall can start after the international break, we could see Burn on the bench. Best 4.2 defender, Alderete. Yeah, see you, Baraf. Good to see you. I have Anthony and Foster. We're starting Rangers over them in Gameweek 7. I'd start Rangers over one of them this week. Probably Foster and Rangers is the way I'd go. Ruler 2 says, I think this is the year with the worst premium options so far. Definitely, especially in that defensive line. Only Gabriel and maybe Van Dijk have been quite solid. Basically only Haaland and overpriced Salah. Maybe Saka or Palmer starts firing. Yeah, the injuries haven't helped, right? Palmer's been injured for quite a while. Saka missed a lot of games this season as well, so I think that will also play a big part. You also had Watkins and, you know, these kind of mid-price 8 to 9 million players who did really well last season at the beginning. Would you play Trippier on a free hit? Yeah, I think so. A Newcastle goalkeeper like Pope or Trippier would be a really good option. Yeah. Saka or Bruno? Saka. Josh King or Gakpo? Gakpo. Why did I choose Dubravka type Sanchez? There's not much in it. I think both of them concede. In my scoreline predictions, I've gone for 2-2 Liverpool-Chelsea and 3-2 Villa. So then it comes down to saves potential, and you're kind of hoping Dubravka makes more, which he generally does. Twister Parky puts his team, sell Salah or roll. Gabs in for Van Dijk. I think he'll start, and long-term it's a good transfer. Yeah, I think roll. I think so. Strand Larson against Brighton as well. Interesting. Yeah, I think I'd roll that. Just about. Because, what, sell Salah to Saka maybe? And then... would it be for free? So if you sold Salah for Saka, would it be for free? Because if it's... I'm guessing it is, by the way. Because he did say roll. Even though you've bought in Gabriel already, but... yeah. For those that still have Salah, I'd only sell him to fund Haaland. And if you were to go to Saka and then make multiple upgrades elsewhere, then that also is viable. But otherwise, I think Salah could be worth keeping until Gameweek 9. Bench 1, Joao Pedro, Reinders or Rodgers? Probably Reinders. He's so difficult to predict. I'm starting him and hoping for the best, really. Yeah, Strand Larson is ill, that is true. But also, Tolu isn't fully fit to start, according to Vitor Pereira. So... they could still get Strand Larson in the lineup, then sub him out early, but I don't think he'll get 84 minutes like he did against Tottenham. What's the advantage of Gameweek 7 or Gameweek 8 wildcard? Well, you could argue they're quite similar, but in Gameweek 8, for example, you'll have more fixture swings for West Ham, where you can invest in Bowen and Diouf. That's not the main reason, though. The biggest advantage of a Gameweek 8 wildcard is the international break, because if you wildcard now, you can get injuries this weekend, then you've got like 2-3 more weeks until the next deadline, and I think those wildcarding in 8 would be in a better position. Which Arsenal mid other than Saka do you think is good? Probably Eze, but Odegaard is in great form. It's just, with Odegaard, he doesn't score enough, and even against Olympiacos, he had a great chance. Good save by the goalkeeper, but on the rebound, he should have done better. So it's really Eze for me, apart from Saka. Ultimately, though, Saka has such low ownership. I know he's difficult to get to for most people, but he is a differential. Bench who? Van der Ven or Reinders? Probably Van der Ven. I'd start Reinders. Hi, Dylan. Start Sells or Dubravka, De Kuyper or Anderson? Probably Dubravka. Not a big fan of either this week. And De Kuyper. Daka says, hey, Dylan. Who would you play instead of Watkins on a free hit? If you're not going for Watkins, go for Voltemade, in my opinion. An underrated shout would be Evanilson, but Voltemade is the pick. Yeah, Raj, Voltemade is also the answer to this question. Is it worth starting a Champions League fantasy even though it's started, mate? Well, it's still fun, but I get why you're asking this question. I don't like joining something that's already started a few weeks ago and you're, massively behind, so to speak. So if you can play the game without thinking about the rank, and by the way, in UCL Fantasy, there's no real way to check your past rank history. The only way I know is because I make videos, so I've made a note of it as soon as I see the end of the season. But yeah, if you can play Champions League Fantasy whilst having fun, I would say yes. It's a really fun game. You've got a lot of differentials and players to pick, and a lot of people are getting high scores, and you get some massive swings sometimes, but I don't know. In my opinion, it's my favourite fantasy game. That's all I can say. Fenerbahce says, thoughts on Cash as a one-week punt? It's okay. I did go for a 3-2 Villa win, though, so I'd be lying if I said I was bullish on a Villa clean sheet, because I'm not. He was in my free hit squad at the end of my podcast, but that's because I struggled for that third defender. Maybe for some people you can go for Trippier. So go for Pope and goal, Trippier, Gabriel, and, complete that defensive line with the other option I talked about in that video. Bench 1, JP, Reinders, Rodgers. I think I covered this. I'd probably bench Reinders. Start 2, Joao Pedro, Lacroix, Ndai, and Elliot Anderson, says Alfred. I would start Joao Pedro and Ndai. By the way, thanks to the moderators like Punjabi. So you plan on starting Reinders? Yeah, I think so. What I could do, though, is buy Voltemade for Chris Wood, and then someone drops to the bench. Either Lacroix, Konsa, Pedro Porro, or Reinders. So in my poll, 36% have said buy Voltemada for Chris Wood. In second is roll the transfer. And in third is take a -4 for Minter and Gyökeres. The other option with Watkins, forget about it. No one is that keen, or very few are. Start Grealish or Gay? Probably Gay. Start Foster or Grealish? Grealish. Would you do Salah and Nico Williams to Saka and Gabriel? Long term, yes, I would. Transfer out Grealish, if so, for who? I have Kudus, Minter and Salah. Well, Semenyo is the best midfielder. If you don't have him, I still think it's not too late. So yeah, Semenyo for me or Sarr would be great long-term options in your team. Salah to Saka, King to Foden, bench boost Gameweek 8. That looks good to me. If Foden starts, which I believe he will, he's a great option against Brentford. 7 goals in 7 games against them. Captain Salah, not for me. So for those that are unaware, let's go through these different tidbits one more time. So these are my scoreline predictions, so this might give you a bit of context of why I answer certain questions in a certain way. Bournemouth 1, Fulham 0. I think they'll keep a clean sheet. Leeds 1, Tottenham 2. Arsenal 3, West Ham 0. Man United 1, Sunderland 1. Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2. Aston Villa 3, Burnley 2. Everton 2, Palace 1. Newcastle 2, Forest 0. Wolves 2, Brighton 3. And Brentford 1, City 3. So this is the team weakness section. I think Nottingham Forest are a team to target under Ange Postecoglou. And one of my favourite punts for Gameweek 7 and beyond is Voltemada, who is in great goal-scoring form for Newcastle. 3 goals in 4 matches. That includes a goal in midweek against Union Saint-Gilloise and also against Arsenal in Gameweek 6. And speaking of which, the Gunners are top of the clean sheet odds, facing West Ham at home. Aston Villa are second. Man United are third, with Newcastle, Bournemouth and Man City in the top 6. West Ham are last. With the top 10 captains, someone asked me about Salah. I've only got him in 7th in my Captaincy list. He could arguably be even lower. I put Gabriel in 10th. That was before the injury news or the yellow flag. Ooh, scary. Not really, because Arteta in his press conference said they're going to see after the training session, and he said he's not concerned about it. Some people might say, but Arteta can't be trusted, mum. Maybe. So in 9th, I've got Voltemada, Bruno Fernandes in 8th, Salah 7th, Gyökeres and Saka are interchangeable. I put Ollie Watkins in 4th with a solid record against Burnley. Semenyo, Foden and Haaland are in the top 3, but yeah, Foden's record against Brentford speaks for himself. Hat-trick against them a few years ago, the only City player to score at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Erling Haaland has only got an assist in that ground. So there you go. What I'll also go through is the lineup. So you won't see my face or any messages for the next section. But yeah, I'm just going to whiz through these since I covered them earlier. But I still think Gabriel will start despite the yellow flag. With Aston Villa, my biggest concern is Marco Bizot or Emi Martinez. I'll go for the Argentine and see if he gets the nod. With Bournemouth, I think a few concerns here would be with the attacking positions. So could it be Adley on the right, Semenyo on the left, and then Kluivert down the middle? Or could Tavernier start alongside Kluivert or in his position? So I think that's the big debate. Is it Brooks, Adley or Tavernier? And I've gone for Brooks this time round. With Brentford, the biggest dilemma is the formation. Will it be a 4-2-3-1 or a back 5 again? If it's a back 4, I think Dango Ouattara will start. Also, Lewis Potter against Aaron Hickey is another debate. With Brighton, Veltman is injured, so I've changed this from yesterday's video. With Veltman being injured, I think Kadioglu will be the right back and De Kuyper on the left-hand side. And Mitoma is an injury doubt with a small ankle problem. He has been withdrawn from the Japanese national team. So I think Gomez could play on the left if Mitoma isn't fit enough, with Jorginho Rota as the attacking midfielder, Welbeck up front, and Minter on the right. With Burnley, 5-4-1 is likely. I think my biggest concern or 50-50 call is with Ogochukwu, who is now available. He could start over Florentino Luis or Cullen, but I've kept the same side that lost 5-1 to City. With Chelsea, Hato or Achimpong will likely partner Badiashile, and in the midfield, Enzo can play deeper alongside Caicedo, opening the door for Buonanotte. Otherwise, it'll be Lavia, Caicedo and Enzo in a more experienced and resolute Chelsea midfield. I've also gone for Neto, Esteval and Joao Pedro. With Crystal Palace, Kamada or Hughes would be a big debate. Apart from that, not many concerns with this lineup. Henderson in goal, Richards, Lacroix, Gay. You kind of know this 11 by now. It's the team I've done best in when it comes to predictions. 64 out of 66 for the season. And not too shabby with Everton either. I think Alcaraz will replace the suspended Dewsbury Hall. And of course, Chalobah is also suspended for Chelsea. And they'll both be available in Game Week 8. With Fulham, I've gone for Traore up front, assuming that Jimenez isn't fit to start. He is yellow flagged, but Rodrigo Muniz and Tete are ruled out for Fulham. Moving on to Leeds, it should be an unchanged side against Tottenham Hotspur tomorrow, and I think Calvert-Lewin up front will lead the line, and Darlow will keep his spot until Perry is back from his injury. With Liverpool, I've got a few concerns here, but Maradashvili will start with Alisson injured until after the international break. He'll miss the Chelsea, United and Real Madrid games, just to name a few important clashes for the Reds. Frimpong is the likely right back, and I think Robertson could start on the left over Milos Kerkez, with McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai in the midfield, which would mean Florian Wirtz drops to the bench once again. With Manchester City, I think Nico Gonzalez will start over Rodri. The rest is kind of what you would have expected, and it's basically the same side that beat Burnley 5-1 last week. With Manchester United, I think De Ligt and Maguire will play together. There was that weird situation during the Manchester derby with Bruno Fernandes blaming Euro for a goal they conceded. Then Euro was dropped from the squad. I'm not sure what's happened there, but there is a chance that Euro comes back into the lineup. I'm not discounting that, but I think it's most likely that United will go with this setup. Amad Diallo should now be available as well. With Newcastle, Lewis Hall doesn't seem ready yet, according to Eddie Howe's comments today. So I think Dan Burn will be the left back, Nick Pope in goal, who went up in price overnight, and Trippier replaces the injured Tino Livramento. So I think Botman and Chow will be the defensive partnership, and it will be Jacob Murphy on the right and Voltemade up front. With Nottingham Forest, they have a lot of injury problems right now. Sinchenko and Murillo are both injured. Of course, Murillo picked up that problem yesterday, and he had to be subbed off. So I think Savona will be the right back, Nico Williams on the left, and I think Chris Wood will start. He did score a penalty towards the end of that game in a 3-2 loss for Forest. They are winless on the Ange Postecoglou. We're approaching the final few teams. Sunderland are one of them, so I think this will be their lineup. Of course, Adingra could still come in from time to time, and once Diarra is back, he will take Riggs' place in the midfield, and Sunderland will go to a 4-3-3 formation, and Tottenham Hotspur can play a 4-2-3-1, and this 4-3-3 you see on screen. I think Udogie will start at left back, but it could still be Jed Spence. That's my biggest concern. Romero will play tomorrow. That is confirmed by Thomas Frank in his press conference, and I believe Pedro Porro will start, and Xavi Simons on the left, Kudus on the right, Richarlison up front. West Ham could play Ward-Prowse in the midfield, but I've gone for Magassa and Matez Fernandes, with Somerville and Bowen on the wings, and Diouf is my second favourite Hammers asset, with Jarrod Bowen being the absolute standout. The final team is the one I've done the worst in, with Wolves, 49 out of 66. With everyone else, I've done fairly well. This has taken my percentage down to 88% across all 20 Premier League teams, but they have now seemed to find a winning formula, or something to build upon. They beat Everton 2-0 with this formation and setup. They also got a decent point against Tottenham, and ultimately they were just seconds away from getting all 3 points. So Johnston in goal, Doughty, Hugo Bueno, Santiago Bueno and Krejci, Joao Gomez, Andre, Arias, Wang Hee-chan, Menezzi, and Strand Larsen, who is an injury doubt. So this could be Tolu, to be fair, but even he isn't fully ready to start at this moment in time. I mean, if you look at the press conference updates today from Vitor Pereira, quite difficult to tell who starts up front. I'd probably say Tolu starts over Strand Larsen. So that's one of the changes to the graphics you see on screen. So bear that in mind if I do keep track of my future progress as well. So let's now go back to my FPL squad and let's lock in our teams. Thank you to those that voted in the poll, that liked this stream, subscribed, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Dylan RCM. You can also find me by typing FPL Dylan. There's my Patreon and the championships. And speaking of which, let me get 5 memberships now. And at the end of the stream, I'll be gifting 5 more since we hit our super chat goal. So let's see who got them. And of course, I'll go through member questions first and foremost. So yeah, Wood to Voltemade is the winner, it seems, but Rolling isn't too far behind. So big up to A Gamer Time, to Kabir, to Ethereum, Alexandru, and OSW133 for getting that membership for an entire month. Enjoy it. You'll get early access to my videos, priority reply to comments, amongst many other perks. Luke Fode says -4. Salah, Dewsbury Hall to Saka and Gordon. Difficult one. My only concern is selling Salah for a hit, but obviously Dewsbury Hall is suspended. I think Saka's a great long-term option, and Gordon is decent. I still prefer Semenyo and Sarr over Gordon, and Voltemada is my favourite Newcastle attacker, but Gordon is second in that list. I'd probably go for it, to be fair, but you are missing out on Salah against Man United in Gameweek 8, so bear that in mind. If you're happy with it, I'd pull the trigger. On a wildcard, Raya and Gabriel versus Timber and Gabriel. It would be Ryan Gabriel for me. And then Enzo versus Mbumo. Enzo on the wildcard, yeah. Joao Pedro to Voltemada. Yeah, as I mentioned before, I like Voltemada. If you want to go differential, I think selling Joao Pedro to Bowen or Voltemada is a great transfer, but Chelsea's fixtures turn for the better very soon. I'd probably keep Joao Pedro personally. So I'd probably say no, but it's not a bad transfer on paper. I like the player bringing in, but Joao Pedro is still decent. No, not for me, Pratik. Liverpool have bad fixtures on paper. I also think they're looking quite shaky defensively. So, yeah, not for me, mate. No, I don't think it's a good punt. With goalkeepers, you want long-term options anyway, so Rye and Pope would be the best, in my opinion. Then you've got the likes of Darlow for now, but I think Dubravka would be the safest, backup option. He's also quite template. So, yeah, it's not a bad idea, but for me, no, I wouldn't go for that. Punts on goalkeepers rarely work out, in my opinion. Thank you to Sydney for becoming a differential, now upgraded to the level 10 in the badges. So big up to you, and also to Stan St. Irons. Are you a West Ham fan, by the way? Let me know in the live chat. Indai to Minter. I like Minter, but I don't think it's worth the transfer. Yeah, I can use this year, my first season, and learn it as I love the Champions League. And also, it's a lot of fun. I really believe that. Now, the streams are very hectic, but still a lot of fun. And yeah, we have so many goals, drama, and different narratives running around, but the template isn't that strong like it is in FPL. Twisted Parky says, no, I don't have Gabriel yet, but do I bring in for Virgil? Okay, fair enough. It's probably a roll, mate. I don't think I'm getting Saka other players I want. Because I don't remember your team now. But I think you've got Haaland already, right? Yeah, I think I missed that question, or I did answer it, but I don't have it now on screen. So yeah, I'll have to double check that later. Maybe put the team again. But if you don't have Haaland, I think Salah to Saka and then buy Haaland is ideal. Dylan, I have no Arsenal coverage. Have Reinders, Foden, Haaland. What to do? I wouldn't sell Foden or Haaland this week, obviously. Reinders, I'd be more open to selling, but then who do you go to? There's not really many options. I don't think Zubimendi is an upgrade. I think he's a downgrade, actually, in FPL. So maybe focus on an Arsenal defender or Raya in goal, which might not be amazing. Gyökeres up front is another consideration, but definitely don't sell Haaland or Foden this week. Yeah, Semenyo third. I mean, he was also ranked highly last week. I mean, he only got 7 points, but the reason why he's so highly ranked is because of the consistency. He's the second highest scoring player in FPL, only behind Erling Haaland. Are you going to do Mateta to Watermark? Oh, I'm guessing that's Voltemada. I like Mateta, though. Yeah, Voltemada is probably a little bit better. And my favourite Palace attacker is Sarr. But I don't think that's like a massive upgrade. In my case, I'm selling Wood, who could be benched at some point very soon. Forest are looking completely off it. And I also think Newcastle can keep a clean sheet, so I can just have that sort of one-week punt. I think with Mateta it's different, so I'm not sure if that's worth it. Yeah, I mean, Jadon Anthony has been bought a lot this week. He's now 5.7 million, so I'm not sure what his ownership is right now, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was around 10%. So for those that are still here, drop a like. Let's get this stream to 200. We are very close to that. And also subscribe to the channel. All that good stuff. Hit the notification bell. You know the drill by now. And let me see what Jadon Anthony's ownership is. Yeah, to be fair, you're all right. His ownership is 5.9, so he's still going under the radar. I'm quite surprised he's gone up in price that much then, but there you go. Sydney says, hey Dylan, which triple Arsenal do you prefer? Sanchez to Raya or Gakpo to Saka? I already have Gabriel and Gyökeres. The thing is, though, I really like that Gakpo to Saka move. So I'd say that. I think maybe long-term, the double up in the defense is better, but it's a nice differential to have Saka and Gyökeres. I really like that. So I'm going to say Saka, actually. I think that's a good upgrade. All right, calm down, Duarte. Easy. Start Murillo or Esteve. Murillo got injured yesterday, so you might have no decision to make there, and it's just Esteve. Not a big fan of either, to be honest. If you can, make a transfer and upgrade that defense. DEE21 says Saka essential mod card. Not essential, but like I said before, how many times do you get a player of that caliber and consistency with that ownership? Very rarely. So if I was wildcarding now, he would be in my team, yeah. And I'll probably bring him in for Gameweek 8, and that will likely be for a wildcard as well. We'll have to downgrade Asal, Enzo to Reinders. Probably Enzo to Reinders then, or Enzo to Caicedo for the DEFCON machine. Yeah. Thank you, Stan. Great stream. Thanks for the advices. Big ups. I've decided to go Voltemada and João Pedro a couple weeks later for Gameweek 9. Yeah, that's fair enough, to be fair, but I think with these forwards, not a lot separates them, and it's quite difficult, I think, because there are 5 I'm really looking at. So Haaland goes without saying, so maybe we can ignore him. But to complete the other 2 spots, you've got Bowen, Gyökeres, João Pedro, and Voltemada. That's not going to be easy. Is Gakpo a good pick? He's still okay, but I'm not a massive fan. Not a massive fan there. I think I talked about holding him recently and maybe keeping him for the United fixture, but ultimately he will be a sell long term. That's the way I look. Please help my fried brain. Would you bench boost this week with Dubravka, Richarlison, Van der Ven, and Richards? I probably would, to be fair. You've got 2 Spurs players away to Leeds. You've got Richards, who is facing a bogey team of Crystal Palace, but yeah, DEFCON potential. Dubravka is okay, not great, but what I would recommend is use the website FPL.team quickly, visualize Gameweek 8 or 9, how would the bench boost look then for your squad and the fixtures, but I have to say that's a good bench boost, in my opinion. Esteve or Alderete first bench? Alderete. People selling wood sure got a lot of timber. Yeah, fair enough. Welcome VE portfolio. Start with Mitchell or Van Dijk. Probably Mitchell. Bench 1, Gavardio or Doggy, Reinders, João Pedro. Maybe a Doggy, actually, because there is a chance that Spence starts over him. How insane does triple captain Haaland this week sound? Well, I was very bullish on Gameweek 6 to do it. He is in great form. Could he score a goal or 2 against Brentford? Yes, but I wouldn't be that confident of a brace or hat-trick this week. And I also said about the stats with Man City, Foden is the only City player to score at the G-Tech Community Stadium. He has a great record against them in general. 7 goals in 7 games. He scored a hat-trick a few years ago. Haaland only has 1 assist against them in their stadium, but his overall record against Brentford is solid. I think it's 3 goals in 5 games. It's not a terrible idea, but I think for those with the triple captaincy, you might consider Gameweek 10 around that stage on an Arsenal player, so like Saka or Gyökeres, but it is away to Burnley, not at home. So probably Gameweek 13 or 15 is what you're looking at. So when Erling Haaland faces the likes of Leeds and Sunderland at home, I think Leeds would be the preference. Relax Eye Gamer says, my team selection for this week is Vicario, Gabriel, Munoz, Senesi, Semenyo, Bruno, Kudus, Reinders, JP, Haaland, and Mateta. I think I'll be rolling the transfer. Thoughts? Good position to be in if you can roll. Having 2 or 3 moves for the Gameweek 8 sort of period with the international break is definitely viable. And your squad is looking solid. You don't need to make transfers this week, but in Gameweek 8 or 9, the likes of Kudus, Vicario, maybe Bruno could become sells, and you can upgrade Mateta possibly to a Voltemada or Jared Bowen, who looks really appealing to me, Victor Gyökeres, etc. Best midfielder for 7 million, I just say Ismaila Sarr, long term. Yeah, now it's going to be, what, 11 minutes. So yeah, you said that a few minutes ago. We'll do Saka from Bruno next week. Yeah, that's fine. I think for those with Bruno like myself, you keep and then you sell to Saka in Gameweek 8. Thank you to Ahmad for the super chat. Would you start Gakpo over Van der Ven if you already have Romero? Yeah, I think I would. That's a good point. Now, Gakpo could be benched. In my lineup, I had Wirtz on the bench, but it could be Gakpo, and you see Wirtz on the left again, but yeah, I think I'd go for that. Diversify your team a little bit. Nico Williams and Dango on the bench as well. I mean, that could be a fairly high-scoring bench boost. Not saying I'd play it, but yeah, I mean, you've got some promising players on the bench there. I mean, Dango is the one, but he's facing City. So I think that's probably the way to go. Start Gakpo over Van de Ven. I think Romero is slightly better for DEFCON this season. Who to bench, Enzo, Munoz or Grealish? I'd personally bench Grealish. Now, I did go for a 2-1 Everton win, but that doesn't mean Grealish is going to get the goal or assist, right? And he's not a great goal scorer in general, even for the Toffees. Up the Toffees! Thoughts on Bowen on the wild card? Yes, I really like that. He is benchable this week, but he did score the winner against Arsenal last season. He's got a good record against them in general. But yeah, Bowen, I talked about a lot in my wildcard video. I like the look of him. I'm probably wildcarding in Gameweek 8, and I think Bowen could make it into my team. So now it's time to make a decision. So let me know in the live chat what you think. It is basically kind of like a follow-up to the poll. I've only got one free transfer. So my plan is to go for this team and then have 2 free transfers in Gameweek 8, where I'll likely wildcard anyway. So then I'll have 2 free transfers in Gameweek 9 as well. Or I go for a 1-week punt in Wood to Voltemada for free, and then that means a benching dilemma where someone like Conser, Pedro Borro, Lacroix, or even Reinders drop to the bench. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about as well. Yeah. I'm really tempted by Voltemada. I think it's a good opportunity against Forest, so that is something I'm considering in the final few minutes. Thank you, Relax Eye Gamer. Appreciate your support, and good luck to you and everyone. Thank you very much, and likewise to you, and for the rest of the season, of course. Selling Anthony to Kudus? Not for me, no. I mean, Anthony is one of the highest scoring midfielders in FPL. Kudus has looked decent recently, but after Leeds, Spurs have poor fixtures on paper, so I'd probably say no. Doku or Foden? It's still Foden for me, especially this week. Minter or... is that Rutter? Jonathan? It's going to be Minter for me. No, it's Jorginho Rutter. Jonathan? Jonathan! Who is Jonathan? I'm being stupid then, but I'm going to say Minter. Next week, I'm considering Watkins to Bowen. I really think Nuno will turn West Ham's fortunes around and make Bowen, who's going under the radar, an even better asset. Yeah, and some people think that Fulkrug will be the new Chris Wood. Hopefully they don't mean this year's Chris Wood, because he has been terrible. Do you really think Everton knock off Palace? Well, like I said before, Palace have a poor record against Everton, even under Oliver Glasner. They also played in the Conference League yesterday, and Everton have a 4 weeks rest. I'm not saying they'll definitely win, but I think Palace will drop points. So 1-1, 2-1, Everton win. I think it'll be very close either way, whoever gets the win, but I don't think Palace will find it easy. No. Best midfielder for 7 million, as covered before, mate. Ismaila Bloody Sarr. Gakpo over Kudus. For this week, no, I'd start Kudus. Hi, Dylan. Start Kudus or Joao Pedro. Slight preference for Kudus. Dubravka, Conser, Reinders, Nico Williams, bench boost worth it? It's not bad. I think Conser and Reinders are pretty good, actually, but once again, go to FPL.team, check how your bench boost would look like in Gameweek 8 or 9, because I think for a lot of people, Gameweek 8 or 9 bench boost looks really good. I'll probably wildcard in 8 and bench boost in 9. That's my current plan. It's still open-minded, you know, that could change a little bit, but yeah, it's a decent bench. I'd probably say yes. Should I buy Anthony or Minter on my wildcard? Minter. Who to start, Pedro or Ndai? Difficult one. I'm going to say Joao Pedro. Taking a punt on bringing in Cunha this week. I'm not really feeling it. Oh, yeah. Jadon Anthony. Yeah, no worries. I wasn't trying to be a dickhead. I was just genuinely confused. Yeah, it's going to be Minter still. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Palace on 19 undefeated, but are they going to go 49 undefeated like Arsenal? No, I don't think so. And also, Palace might do better against the better teams. Let's not forget they drew 0-0 against Sunderland a couple of weeks ago. So they might still be a bit frustrating from that perspective. So just to make it clear, I'm not saying Palace are definitely losing. I just think it'll be a very tight game, like a 2-1 either way, a 1-1 draw. And in my prediction, I've gone for 2-1 Everton. But let's see. Reinders or Gordon? Gordon. Start Gay or Van de Ven? Probably Van de Ven. Start Richards or Borro? Borro. Welcome, Ayub. Good to see you. Kanishk says midfield. Wait, what? So you got Constance, Senesi, Van de Ven, Gay, Gabriel, Reinders, Bruno, Semenya, Sarr, Stack. Who can I bench? Need free from this. I would bench Stack. Yeah, not easy, to be fair. So look, I'd definitely start Gabriel and Senesi. For the third defender, I might lean towards Van de Ven. The clean sheet odds have Villa second, only by an Arsenal, so you might want to consider that. In the midfield, yeah, Stack would be on the bench. Yeah, so there you go. That's my answer to your question. Thank you. Oh yeah, I just covered this, right. But yeah, at least you got the answer to your question. So basically to bench, yeah, Gay on the bench, in my opinion. Probably Konsa. I've gone for 3-2 Villa, so not a clean sheet. And Stack. Those are the three I'd bench. There is a debate of Konsa over Van de Ven, so that's up to you if you want to go the other way. In terms of the clean sheet odds and stuff, Villa are ranked higher, so that's definitely reasonable. But I would definitely bench Stack and probably mark Gay, because I think Everton will score. Ndai or Pape Sarr? Definitely Ndai. Captain Bruno, Watkins, Saka or Gyökeres? From those players, it's probably Watkins. He's fourth on my list. Saka is, I think, fifth, Gyökeres sixth, and Fernandes ninth. They're all good options, but I think Watkins. Salah to Saka? I'm not so sure, mate, because there's also United after the international break, and the main appeal of selling Salah is to fund Haaland. Otherwise, it's not completely necessary. In my opinion, that's the way I look at it. So I think what I'm going to do here is go for the jugular. I think I'm going to make a late change, and this will probably backfire massively, but I think I'm going to sell Chris Wood to Nick Voltemada, and that means I have one free transfer next week, and I'll probably wildcard in 8 anyway, and I could also, well, I'll still have one free transfer in 9. That's the only downside to this, but yeah, I am looking at this sort of move. I think this is the way I'm going to go. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. In the poll, it is winning, but only just 35% of the vote. Roll the transfer is second. And yeah, in third is the -4 option for Minter and Gyökeres. Now, before yesterday's price changes, I actually could have bought Sarr and Gyökeres for Gakpo and Wood. And I think long-term, that would have been a great play. So yeah, Punjabi, to be honest, I'm not sure about happy, but yeah, it's not like a priority to make a transfer. It's like a bit of a punt if I do go for it. And I think Voltemada will come in. Tarkovsky to Burn and Stack to Sarr, 2 free transfers. Yeah. Just bear in mind that once Lewis Hall can start games, Dan Burn might not start consistently. But he should be first choice in most matches. He will start this weekend. Yeah, Stack to Sarr is a great transfer. Out of those two players, Alfred, probably Goodmanson. I think both will concede though. So we've now got less than 2 minutes for the deadline. Lock in your bloody squads. Don't leave it for the last minute. But, yeah, Xander, I just hope you're not copying or anything, yeah? Come on, don't copy. Follow your own path to success. That is the way to go in FPL. So yeah, Chris Wood to Voltemada, and that would mean a huge benching dilemma at the end, and I might just go for Lacroix on my bench, which might end up being a massive mistake. Who knows with the season I've had so far. But yeah, Wood to Voltemada, it's done. Now I just need to bring him into my starting 11. So Voltemada in for Lacroix. I can't stress this enough. I know everyone can play the game the way they want to, but in my opinion, don't copy anyone. Follow your own path. Learn from your mistakes. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't, but you want to improve your decision-making process to then get into a better position to have that sort of luck. I think Lacroix over Gakpo on the bench, I think that's what I'll probably go for, which could also backfire massively, by the way, but that is going to be my final team. Haaland captain, Semenya vice. Yeah, hopefully people don't bloody copy, but it is what it is, right? Ndai, Elliot Anderson or JP? Probably JP. Why is this fun yet stressful? That is FPL for you, mate. It's absolutely FPL. We've got 20 seconds left. Lock it in. Choose the right captain. Vice captain is also important, especially if the weather is going to cause us problems. Let's bloody see. I just hope I don't regret benching Lacroix. Lacroix. Yeah, that could definitely backfire. Now, if Gabriel were to miss out completely and given a rest, then it doesn't matter, basically. And I've bought Voltemada for Chris Wood. But there we go. We're locked in. That's it. Bob's your uncle. The deadline is done. So, yeah. Some people might say, Mum, I can still make a transfer in the app or on the website. Okay, but it's not going to last for very long. Well, yeah. I think both of them will concede anyway. Then it comes down to saves. So, yeah. Really like the Voltemada move. I just think Forest are there for the taking. He's also looked quite impressive against Arsenal and Wolves. And obviously he scored in the Champions League against Union Saint-Gilloise. He isn't on penalties, which is why people might gravitate towards Gordon, but I still like Voltemada. And if I do wildcard in 8, I might just get rid of him. But as a 1-week punt, I really like the look of him. And yeah, with my funds, of course, maybe I should have done some transfers earlier. I could have taken a -4. Like I said, bought Sarr and Gyökeres for Gakpo and Wood. But then I would have another benching dilemma. So one of Reinders, you know, in Die would have to go to the bench, even Joao Pedro. I'm quite happy with how things have turned out. My only concern really is Lacroix and Gakpo on the bench. And you can even say Sanchez Dubravka can lead to a massive swing. It did a couple of weeks ago, a 7-point swing because of Robert Sanchez being an idiot. Captain Bruno, Watkins, Saka or Gyökeres. Yeah, I did cover this before, mate. Watkins was the one I recommended. So if you check my captaincy list, which I'll bring up now on screen, I had Watkins in 4th, just outside the podium. Saka and Gyökeres are interchangeable. I do have a slight preference for Saka, and I do like the fact that he is a differential with around 7-8% ownership. So that is my order of the rankings. Fernandes is 8th, by the way, not 9th. That is Nick Voltemada, who I just bought in. Let's see what the coin says, by the way. So let's do Dubravka versus Sanchez, even though this is useless now. So I think last time I did say Sanchez is heads, Dubravka is tails. So let's give myself a bit of space. Bloody hell. Okay, that was a crap twink. No. I always do it crap in the first bloody time. What am I doing? Woo! Yes, tails. I don't know why I did. But yeah. So they're basically saying, go for Dubravka. The coin better not let me down, by the way, because I did that a few weeks ago. It landed on Dubravka. I still started Sanchez, and I lost out on 7 points. Just saying. Just saying. I also think I did it for... What was it? There was something else I did it for. And it also resulted in the correct decision. So maybe in FPL, don't watch videos. Just make your team late, flip a coin, and that's it. Best way to play. That's what Two-Face would say. Reinders or Joao Pedro? Joao Pedro for me. But yeah, I know some of these questions were done just before the deadline closed in, but I did answer some of these multiple times throughout the stream. You're easy, always with your bloody positivity. I think you manifest these things from happening, you know, like with Watkins and all this bloody bullshit. Yeah, team is locked. Yes, I really hope Chris Wood doesn't score now, but he probably will. Risky, but decided to keep Van der Ven over Gakpo. YOLO. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, we were having this conversation earlier. I probably would have started Gakpo, but I've got him second on my bench, so what do I know? Yeah, that's good, easy. Best way to do it, if possible, but of course, people do hold out with the possibility of information, which is coming less frequently now. But yeah, that's fine. Let's answer a few more questions, then I'll lock in. But I'm going to give 5 memberships in a few minutes so as a thank you for those that have been supporting the channel and going into the international break in the best possible way. There should be a stream tomorrow, and after that, there'll be a break from content. But once I am back, I'll be at full throttle with UCL Fantasy and FPL videos and live streams. So we are 27 likes away from 200. Let's make sure to reach that, and let's close in on new goals like 37,000 subscribers. I believe we've got almost 100 subscribers today in the stream, so thank you very much. Let's keep on pushing. I believe by the end of the month, we'll hit yet another milestone. All right, fair enough, Xander. I'm just saying, because some people do like, oh, when are you going to make the transfer? Are you going to do this? Even for like substitutions in UCL Fantasy, people are asking me what you're doing. Take off your low-scoring players, mate. Like, yes, you get some team selection headaches sometimes if your team's doing well, but yeah, I'm just telling you, some people, unfortunately, they just want to copy everything, absolutely everything, and I don't like that personally, but it is what it is. Good luck as well, Sudindra. Saka to Hall after I captain Haaland and blanks. Well, you're a Liverpool fan, right? You're probably trying to reverse jinx anyway. Voltemada, the German Peter Crouch. Yeah, I mean, both of them aren't great at headers, but to be fair, Voltemada's 2 goals in the Prem have been from that situation. I think he's a bit of a different player than people have in mind because he's so tall. I just triple captain Haaland at last minute in form. Brentford are a team to target this season. Yeah, I'd be more keen if it was a home fixture, to be fair. And Brentford drew against Chelsea 2-2. They beat United 3-1. And whilst I think City will win, they do look a bit shaky defensively, and I think it could be a tighter game than we think. I've gone for 3-1, but it could still be like 2-1 for most of the game, and then it's a late winner. So we'll see how it goes. Good luck with that. And the same goes to Stan. All the best. Decided to sell Gakpo to Saka and started Dorgu over Anderson. Yeah, the thing is, like, if I had enough money and I bought Voltemada in for Wood and I could do Gakpo to Saka, I'd still probably do it for a hit. I'd then bench one of Ndai, Reinders, or Joao Pedro. But it is what it is, right? I've gone for something a little bit different. Yeah, true, easy, but I think West Ham were better defensively from set pieces against Everton. And with the new manager, I think it won't be as big of an issue. I went for Thiago for Strand Larsen as he is yellow flagged. Kept Tosin and kept Virgil. Wanted Gabriel, but 2 potential injuries on the bench. Yeah, that makes sense. Gordon is the penalty taker for Newcastle. He took 2 in the midweek Champions League game against Union Saint-Gilloise. Yeah, going back to this one. Yeah, I think Igor Thiago long-term could be decent. I'm not a big fan of him against City, but their defence is also quite vulnerable. Stan says, love the coin toss. Thank you. Not the first one, though. That was poor. I don't know why. Every time I do the first one, it's like I'm rusty, and I have to keep doing it. I could also roll some dice. I've been doing that a lot recently. Not gambling. Gamble responsibly. But no, it's like board games, and I just dropped one. What an idiot. But yeah, also just trying my luck, changing things up a little bit, seeing what I do. Not my FPL decisions just yet, but maybe I'll just call myself FPL Dice and just roll it. Good luck, Dylan and everyone. Likewise, Watkins will disappoint you. Mate, he literally didn't score against Feyenoord as well in a 2-0 win. He's going to score against Burnley, I know it, but ultimately Robert Sanchez will probably concede against Liverpool either. And yeah, Chelsea. You're going to do Arsenal a favour, right? Thank you. I saw Grealish for Saka. What do you think? Oh, that's a massive upgrade. No problems with that whatsoever. Time to finally activate the wildcard. I might do it tonight. I am going to leave in just a few minutes and, maybe well, I'm going to forget about FPL for a few hours. But yeah, if I can maybe come to a full decision, maybe I'll just activate the wildcard by the end of tonight and get a few of those early price rises and gain some team value. I did a coin flip for triple captain Salah Gameweek 4 or Salah Gameweek 6. Wish I stuck to my Gameweek 6 plan. Wait, so you actually wanted to do Gameweek 6, but then you flipped a coin and it landed on Salah and you're like, okay, let me do that. I think the coin was jinxed or something. It went against you there. I'll look for that afterwards anyway. I see it right there. But yeah, so far this season, the coin has been good to me. But then again, I made the decision and flipped the coin afterwards. So who knows? It's all bloody luck, isn't it? Thank you, Paredes. Allow me to thank you for another great deadline. Hopefully it works for everyone. Wishing you all a great international break. Lol. Well, we try our best, right? We can be bored out of our minds. I typically like international breaks, but now it's just 2 friendlies. Nothing to play for. So, yeah, not really much to comment on. See new players, I guess. But I'll probably just, take just a week off from football. And then, when I'm back, have everything ready for FPL and UCL Fantasy. That's the plan. Thank you very much. We don't talk about Watkins anymore. If Watkins is talked about, permanent ban. Just saying. Good luck with the game week, Dylan. Thank you, Fenerbahce, and likewise to you. Unless you have Ollie Watkins. Wayseng says, I can have Gordon and Gyökeres, but not Saka and Gordon. Yeah, I get that. Saka can be difficult for some people, especially for those without Salah or Fernandes as a sort of route to Saka, but I just think Saka's a great opportunity for those that can go there. 7-8% ownership, great fixtures. I'll probably buy him in. But if he hauls against West Ham this weekend, that might be the worst thing that can happen because then people will just buy him in droves against Fulham away and Arsenal are top of the FDR until Gameweek 12. I didn't make any transfer and holding 2 after the international break. I almost did that, but I bought Voltemada in the final few minutes and started him over Lacroix and Gakpo, so we'll see how that goes, but I wanted to take a sort of punt there. Yeah, I'll show you my FPL Challenge team briefly. And just for those that are unaware, oh yeah, I was on that screen as well for the captaincy, but I think I went to that after the deadline. Yeah, so that's fine. So yeah, these are my scoreline predictions. Let's now go to FPL Bloody Challenge. And this is not locked in, but I've currently got Nick Pope in goal, Gabriel, Gay, Foden captain, Semenyo and Watkins. If we refresh the page, Gabriel is now yellow flagged. So if I actually remember to make the changes to FPL Challenge, I could maybe sell Gabriel to a different Arsenal defender. But yeah, that's my current setup. I only got 43 points last week, by the way, but yeah, I think I was carried by Erling Haaland. Oh yeah, I should have. I've got Haaland mask. I could have used it after the triple captaincy. Maybe next time. For the second half of the season, we'll be there. We will be there. And does that look good? Yeah. OCD. There you go. Do Chelsea a favour chant, and we will do you a favour. Nah, I'm good. Oh yeah, the Chelsea. I've done that in the past to take the piss out of your fans because you've only got one chant. If nailed, is Gordon the best fourth midfielder? Not in my opinion. So I think it's Saka, Semenyo, Ismaila Sarr. I mean, you could say that over in Dye and stuff. Maybe he's the fourth or fifth kind of like choice, maybe. But I do prefer the other three over him. Salah's still better, but ultimately, not many will have Salah and Saka right now. Crouch scored the most headed goals in the Prem. Yeah, true. I just think with Voltemada specifically, he hasn't scored that many headed goals in his career. But of course, in the Prem, a bit different. Copying people is a waste. Use your instinct, knowledge, and gut, plus some stats is the way to go. Next season will be my 20th. Wow, that is a lot of experience. That's like, what, 4 times my experience or something? A little bit less than that, but still, 3-4 times. Really impressive. Saka and Voltemada, not Gordon. I like that though. Saka and Voltemada looks very solid. Hopefully Cunha gets his first goal this week. Yep. He has to beat the 007 allegations. So. 007. Just like Florian Wirtz. Maradashvili 4.3 until November. Not interested. To be honest, I'm not interested. I don't like short-term punts on goalkeepers. For those that are wildcarding in 13, yeah, fair enough. But I think Pope, Raya have better clean sheet potential. I don't think it's worth it. How many Haaland goals score in Premier League if he keeps this form? This season, he'll easily get over 30. If he keeps this form up, I'm probably going to say 35. Just shy of his record of 36. Throughout his career, if he stays at Man City for another 5-7 years, he's going to break the all-time Premier League record. And yeah, if he stays for his whole career, then we could be looking at 400 plus goals in the Prem alone. Buendia captain, Rodri out. Wow. I mean, Buendia's in good form, but he's not someone I'd buy in FPL, let alone captain, but everyone's different. Play it your way. Newcastle fixtures seem pretty good. Yeah, they're decent. That's why I think 2 might be the sweet spot. So Nick Pope in goal, if not someone like Trippier or Burn in that defensive line, and one of Gordon or Voltemada, with the German being my preference. Voldemort, come on. Between Voldemort and Isak, who do you pick for this game week? Voltemada. Now, Isak hasn't scored a Premier League goal yet for Liverpool. That will surely come very soon, and I am backing a high-scoring game, so he could still be decent. But I really like Voltemada this week. I probably jinxed him, but let's see what happens there. Our long throw-ins, also dangerous set pieces. Well, it's being used more frequently this season. Arsenal have been doing it a lot, and they're not the only team, by the way. I think Arne Slot pointed out that Chelsea have scored half of their goals from set pieces this season. So I think people are just finding different ways to gain an advantage over the opposition. Top 5 keepers this week for Challenge. Pope, Raya, whoever starts for Villa, Emi Martinez or Marco Bizot. In the clean sheet odds, if we go to that very quickly, United are 3rd, but I wouldn't go for Bayındır or Lamens, and it's probably going to be Bayındır again. I'd say Petrovic, actually. So I might disappoint you here. I'm not sure if I can get to a full 5, but I would say, yeah, Raya, Pope, Petrovic would be my top 3. And if you look at my scoreline predictions one more time, if you can kind of track the clean sheets here, it's basically those 3 teams I'm backing for a clean sheet. So Arsenal, Newcastle, and Bournemouth. So that's what I'd recommend. With the others, it's kind of difficult to say. Maybe one of Roofs or Bayındır if you want to go there. I'm not so sure about that, mate. Yeah, I'm not too bullish on the other teams keeping a clean sheet. Just my predictions. I could be completely wrong. Maybe Palace keep a clean sheet or Everton, one of those 2, but difficult to say. It's a tough game to call, and I've gone for 2-1 in my scoreline prediction. Roy Delap throw-in lethal weapon. Yeah, that's a flash to the past. Who's the most dangerous player in the lead squad? Probably Okafor. I mean, Nonto's still injured, Daniel James as well, but it has to be Okafor. Does Newcastle continue? They haven't played that recently. So against Arsenal and Union Saint-Gilloise, they played a 4-3-3. So it just depends. In certain away games, they can still go to it, but I think they'll go for a 4-3-3 more often now. Marwin says, can you give my your opinion on my team? Yeah, it looks good. Not a massive fan of Gvardiol this week, but he's still a decent choice. So you've got a double up in the City attack, triple up overall, solid forward line, probably the template on the wild card, but for some people want to go differential, I think one of Bowen or Voltemada looks really appealing, especially from Game Week 8 onwards. Yeah, the midfield is really good. I like Semenyo, Saka and Sarr a lot. I think Reinders is maybe a sell in the coming weeks, but yeah, he's not a priority right now. Yeah, lineups are out. I'll cover them quickly, but I need to go very soon, so just bear that in mind. So I'll cover this and then head away because yeah, I've got a motive to attend. I don't want to let the people down. So let's get Bournemouth's lineup first, and then we'll go to Fulham. Let's see if Jimenez is back. Like I said, if he is available, he will start. So let's see. Oh dear. Okay. What have I just seen? Okay, with Bournemouth, let's go to their Twitter page. So Petrovic, Truffer, Senesi, Brooks, Scott, Ivanosen, Adams, Tavernier, Diakite, Hill, and Semenyo. So in my predicted lineup, I've got 9 out of 11 correct. Oh my god, I keep getting this right back wrong. When I say Hill, it's Jimenez. When I say Jimenez, it's Hill. With Tavernier, he's the one getting the nod over Adley and also Cliver, actually. Yeah, so Cliver is on the bench. Huh. Yeah, Brooks is starting, so I got that right, but yeah, Tavernier is back in the lineup. Okay, makes sense. So 9 out of 11 correct for Bournemouth. Not much more to comment on, and no postponements, hopefully, this weekend. With Fulham, Leno, Diop, Anderson, Bassi, Castagna, Berg, Lukic, Sessegnon, King, Iwobi, and Wilson. So with this one, I got 10 out of 11 correct. So Diop comes in, no Adama Traore, who is on the bench. And that means no Manice and no Jimenez. Fulham are without a recognised striker. So there you go. Both lineups covered. Thank you, everyone. It has been a blast talking to you for the past, well, almost 3 hours. And by the way, on Tuesday, it was a 4-hour deadline stream for UCL Fantasy. That was a mammoth task, probably a record for the longest deadline stream I've ever done. And there were triple uploads on Monday and yesterday for UCL Fantasy and FPL respectively. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both UCL Fantasy and FPL, throughout the entire season. And keep your eyes peeled for more content. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the Champships, further access to my videos, prior to comments, amongst many other perks, my Discord server, the FPL League and Spotify can also be found in the description. And yes, I did say I would give 5 more memberships. I'm going to do that right now, just before ending things. So let's see who gets them. I know my face isn't on screen, but I think some messages might still be highlighted. So I'll go through these quite briefly. And if you want to continue the conversation, join the Discord server, leave a comment, and all that good stuff. Also click the hype button on YouTube. That is possible on the app, on your phone, tablet, or device. So that is something else you can do to support the channel. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify as well. It really helps us out. Thank you very much. Twisted Parky says Bournemouth 1, Fulham 0. Leeds 1, Spurs 1. Hopefully. The same goes for the next scoreline prediction. 3-0 Arsenal. United 0, Sunderland 1. Chelsea 1, Liverpool 2. Villa 2, Burnley 1. Everton 1, Palace 1. That's a good prediction. Very difficult game to call. Newcastle 3, Forest 1. Wolves 1, Brighton 2. And City to win 2-1 away to Brentford. I did laugh at the United prediction because I think a lot of people feel that way, that United will drop points against Sunderland at home, a newly promoted team, and it's definitely not a bad one. If you were to play a Newcastle defender this week, who would you pick? Well, I don't think Cher will start, actually, so it would be Burn naturally. Trippier is my favourite Newcastle defender for the short term, and up until Tino Livramento is available, which is in 8 weeks' time. Yeah, Welbeck differential against Wolves. He has a decent record against them, and he scored a brace against Chelsea recently, but yeah, it's still Haaland captain. If you've got Danny Welbeck, that also looks solid. Easy puts his scoreline predictions: 2-1 Bournemouth, 2-2 Leeds Spurs, 2-1 Arsenal, 2-1 Sunderland. You've got a lot of 2-1s in there, by the way. 2-2 Chelsea, 2-1 Villa, 1-1 Everton Palace, that's a good one. Newcastle 2, is that Forest 0? 2-0 Brighton and 1-0 City. Maybe you're onto something there. So, to CN fans jerseys, FPL Confused Bowen. And by the way, Bowen, don't haunt me once again. I hate when he scores against us. Slippy T, Eej Parim, and KD enjoy the memberships for an entire month. They're just gifted randomly by YouTube and their algorithm. Thank you to Barbary Corsair, Wei Seng, and all the support throughout, well, the entire month and since you've been tuning in. Some people have been watching my content for years now, and that's much appreciated. Thank you, Kevy. Yeah, I think so. I also can't do a reaction stream on Sunday. So from Sunday onwards, I'll be taking a break from content, and then I'll be back at full flow with UCL Fantasy and FPL videos and streams. Thank you, Punjabi, as well, and everybody else watching. Good luck, Dylan and guys. Have a fun weekend, no matter the outcome, and that is a great way to end the stream. I'll see you very soon for the reaction stream tomorrow, and after that, in over a week's time, you'll see more FPL and UCL Fantasy content out of the Game Week 8 and Matchday 3 deadlines, respectively. I wish you all the best of luck for this game week and the rest of the season, and I'll see you very soon.